Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Logical, Plausible, Probable. I'm your host, John Maddox, and tonight we're having another stream you just won't want to miss. If you got what it takes, click that link, or prepare yourself, for this arena is not for the weak. Now, let the mental combat begin, but always make sure your arguments are LPP. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a after show here on Logical, Plausible, Probable. Hopefully we'll have a good time tonight. I know everybody's coming over from Standing for Truth, where there was another interesting evolution on trial debate between Kent, and tonight it was Atheist Jr. And it was kind of an interesting one. I was mildly triggered by the interesting discourse back and forth between the two of them, which I'll address my positions on here in a little bit. But decided, hey, let's do it after show. So appreciate everybody coming here. Those of you who are coming over for the first time, make sure you pay attention here for just a few seconds while I explain how we do it here. So for the first, 45 minutes to an hour, we'll kind of do, try to keep it focused on the after show for sure. And the order that people come in, you'll get like 45 seconds to a minute to kind of share your thoughts about the debate, who you thought won, lost, best one-liners, best comebacks, things that really stuck out to you, just overall, feelings about the debate. We'll kind of go in circle from that perspective. As new people hop into the panel, we'll get you whatever we're talking about at the time. We'll kind of go on timeout. That person will get the floor, share their thoughts about the debate, and then we can get back into general discussion. And then from there, we'll see where the night takes us. And hopefully we will have a good time. And maybe it'll be a dumpster fire, maybe it won't. If it does turn into a dumpster fire, well, then I guess I'll just have to make sure to have an overlay ready. So we will go into full-scale dumpster fire mode potentially at some point in the night, but hopefully we'll be able to have some good conversation and it won't get too crazy. A couple quick shout outs before I let people that are backstage come in and share their thoughts. Doki Doki Bible Club is in the house. Thank you, sir, both a member and a super sticker addict. Thanks so much, Doki. Appreciate your support very much. As always, I believe I saw Jerome and other members here. I think Kevin is here. Maybe we got a bunch of members that have been doing a lot of things to support the channel. Thanks you guys very much. And I really appreciate all of y'all's support and encouragement on different things, even though I've been a little bit busy lately and haven't been able to do as much streaming as I would like. And then, without further ado, I must also call out the one and only Germania, who says he views me as the type who'd go into an auto repair shop or auto parts store and ask for blinker fluid. I mean, Ger, listen, buddy, we all know that you can't even change a tire and are just projecting your own ignorance. But, you know, I like you. Come on in. It's not late enough for you to not come into the after show. Click that link. Get your tail in here. Okay, without enough of all that, let's get into the after show conversation. Bring everybody in order here. So first up, we've got the one and only Ogre. What's up, man? Good to see you. It's been a while. How you been? Tell us about your thoughts on tonight's debate.
Hey, thanks for having me in here. I had some dental work recently, so I'm not going to stay up too late, but wanted to come in, give my thoughts on the debate that I saw, and yeah, it's been a bit.
Well, how's the dental work? Did it all turn out okay?
Yeah, I'm recovering, but everything hurts, you know. It's what happens when you're old and you have to go to the dentist.
Totally get that. So what did you think about the debate tonight? Were you able to check it, or you just joined the after show for some
fun and frivolity? I watched by the first half of it. I started losing interest because it seemed like they were trying to split hairs on definitions, which I guess is a tactic. I'm not a big fan of that version, given that AJ and Kent, neither of them are really super knowledgeable in these subjects. So splitting hair on terminology seems like a waste of time. But you know, that's the way the debate seemed to go. So I missed the second half because I got bored with it. But I'm interested to see what other people say.
Right on. Appreciate that. Yeah, there was a little bit of just a smidgen of hair splitting and some very myopic, you know, just, I don't know. It was definitely an interesting debate. I'll share my thoughts on it here in a little bit. I'll let Rose go first. Okay, up next, I'm assuming that is Andrew, also known as Rational Empiricist. Is that who I'm looking at here?
Yep.
What's up, Andrew? How you doing?
Initials right here. Yep. Yeah, thanks for having me on. I saw majority of the debate. I missed the Q&A section, unfortunately, but I think I mostly agree with the summarization here, that it was a bit, for the most part, kind of splitting hairs between technical terms and whatnot. I do think there were some points that were covered that I do want to, I guess, talk about if we get into them, that I think Kent definitely misunderstood tonight. But yeah, that's just kind of my quick thoughts for right now.
Right on. Appreciate it. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. Hefe KC, what's up? Welcome to the stream. How you doing? What are your thoughts about tonight's debate?
I didn't see too much of it. It wasn't. I lost interest pretty quick, so I can't tell. I can't comment.
All right. Up next, we got the Sith Emperor. What's up, man? How you doing? Welcome to the stream. What are your thoughts about the debate tonight?
Greetings, everyone. First of all, I would like to apologize for my poor accent. But other than that, I arrived a bit late for the debate. So when I showed up, it was everyone was giving their final statements. But by the looks of it, like the debate seemed like, as Orgy has said, it was basically two people who weren't very knowledgeable, splitting hairs and trying to argue about certain terms that neither of them understood really well, and it felt like they drag it on more than they should.
Right on. Appreciate your thoughts there. Well, the reason I'm even doing this after show was, I was kind of busy, was driving home, started listening to it, I was playing catch up a little bit, and the entirety of Atheist Jr.'s opening statement was nothing but ad hominem and had absolutely nothing to do with the debate topic. He presented literally zero evidence in favor of his position. Literally zero. So I'm not really sure what that's about. And then in his response after Kent's opening statement, he went into more of that. Well, the only thing he mentioned about like evidence in favor of his position was in his final sentence of his opening statement. And then that didn't happen until like actually didn't happen very often in the entire debate, right? It was like a bunch of BS back and forth, as you guys have been talking about, definition, argumentation, but not actually like arguing in favor of his position. And whether you agree or disagree with him, it's like, what is this? What am I listening to right now? Moreover, the part that just really blows my mind that he would actually continue to make this point, and it just showcases how much of a freaking idiot that guy is. He drives me up the freaking wall, to be honest. And it really blows my mind when people make these stupid statements and they don't realize how dumb they are. So he kept making this argument like about taxes. And you're a 501c3, therefore you don't pay taxes. And it's like, dude, for education. And it's like, dude, number one, property tax is not the only source of revenue for schools. In Alabama, it comes like 60-something% is from income tax, 30% is from sales tax, and then the remainder is from property tax and grants from the federal government. So it's like, what is your point, dude? Like, what is the relevance to this at large for your overall argument? Oh, wait, you're not making any arguments. And I think what's really fascinating to me, kind of judging from a lot of the atheists in the debate, side chat, was they were wanting to we were observing a bunch of like nitpicking and insult dropping, but no substance. And then it's like everybody seemed to have like blinders put on, or they were suffering from temporary amnesia and forgetting that the person who was taking the affirmative was AJ, and he was trying to put his opponent somehow on defense the entire time and question what his positions were, when he was the one that was supposed to be defending his own position. Anyway, enough of my rant. It blew me away. I was astonished that that's what it turned into. And I was just kind of surprised that Donnie let things go as long as he did before they finally kind of got back on the topic. It was a solid like 30 minutes in before anything of remote substance was said. Anyway, enough of my diatribe. Anybody want to jump in now?
I'm not going to necessarily disagree with that. But I will say I think that was part of AJ's intention, was to kind of go after Ken. I mean, that's what his current channel is a lot focused around. That's what's got him views. So,
well, you're right, man. But from their first debate, right, it was well established that that wasn't what it was going to be, and then he ended up doing it anyway. And after it was firmly established that wasn't what was going to happen, and which is why I go back to the aspect of, as being juvenile and just like, what is happening right now? What is this turning into? And why I was saying like, Donnie, I ain't saying it to him, I'm just talking to myself. Like, what the heck, dude? Why are you letting this slide? Whether or not you agree or disagree with the points that are being made, that's not even remotely the subject of the debate. So let's get back to the debate,
Kent should have took the higher ground. That's point blank. He should have been the bigger man and represented himself as a more of a in a better way. I say, Kent, you took the bait. So
we got somebody new coming in. We got A from VA. I'm assuming that's A from Virginia, but I could be wrong. What's up? Welcome to the stream. How you doing?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep, coming through.
Yeah,
what
you're
are your
right.
thoughts on tonight's debate?
Yeah, Anthony from Virginia, and like some of the others, I wasn't able to see a lot of the debate, especially the beginning. I came more towards the middle end in the question period, and I've seen a million of these debates, and I've seen Ken debate a number of times. So I kind of have an idea what he probably would have said. I agree the Atheist Jr. didn't provide anything that came remotely close to proving his position. But I've seen, and I agree with Ken's position. I feel like his arguments need to be a little more sophisticated than, we've never seen a chicken give birth to a human or something. I feel like he goes that route too often.
Yeah.
But I have seen him make a number of good points in the past. But I feel like he kept asking him, they got hung up on Ken saying, "Have you ever seen a bacteria give birth to something with a backbone?" I think I knew what he meant, which is over a long period of time. But that was 30 minutes of him saying, no, bacteria don't give birth to creatures with backbones. So I don't know. That was kind of my take. But I was kind of just wanted to join in case I hear something that I can maybe speak more in detail about. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Good points. Yeah, I think some of the things need to be remembered is very often in debates, it is very easy to get not necessarily distracted, but kind of give tit for tat in relation to the way the opponent is approaching things. And what I always find interesting because I follow what you're saying there, Anthony, right? I don't want to mess up your name. It was Anthony from VA, right?
That's correct. Yes, Anthony.
Okay. What I found, just from an observation perspective with a lot of the debates from Kent, is the vast, vast, vast majority of his opponents are not bringing very sophisticated arguments, and they kind of get responded to in kind. Is kind of it's why I don't need to go into great detail if you're not bringing anything of substance, i.e., you're arguing over does a 501c3 pay property tax, therefore my position is true. If you're going to come out from that perspective, why would I give you a high level response? And I was speaking for myself. And on the flip side, the vast majority of people, I was speaking from personal experience, the vast majority of people that I've debated, when I bring up higher level arguments, they accuse me of gish galloping, word salad, so on and so forth. And then I get them to admit they don't understand the words that are coming out of my mouth. It's so you don't understand the concept of the argument and the fundamentals of it. But I'm the one who is not being of substance, while you just admitted that you're an ignorant idiot. Interesting. And in a lot of these debates online, we have echo chambers to an extent, and we got people on both sides that agree 100% with the other person's positions and are not necessarily analyzing the substance of the arguments and how valid are they, for or against. And that's something I've really been observing a lot. Really this past year, in a lot of debates that I've watched, I feel like people are just kind of not really diving into and are being. And a lot of folks, I've seen this. So I did a debate a month and a half ago on Modern Day Debate, and all those people in comments, atheists in comments, were talking all this trash, but they clearly didn't even know what the points that were being made. So I don't know about you guys, but if I don't know about something, I kind of make it on purpose. Don't go and make strong assertions if I don't have some semblance of knowledge about it, because the probability of me end up looking like an idiot is pretty high if I've got no knowledge of a subject. And I sure as hell wouldn't broadcast to the world, oh yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about, but that guy's wrong. I mean, that's just dumb. I don't know what you guys think about that, but that's my opinion.
Like when you said, once you're saved, you're always saved. And then you say that you are, which is false. Is that what you're talking about, LP?
So would you like to have a debate with me about that? Not during this after show, but Casey, if you want to have a formal debate with me on the topic, we can do that.
I do. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. So is that the only reason you're here? You want to have a formal debate on
that's why I'm here.
Salvation? Okay,
That's
cool. Cool. So let's set something up and we can have a debate. And I'll embarrass the hell out of you. See you later.
Want to set
If
it
that's,
up?
if that's the only reason you're here, then send Donnie an email. We'll set up a time to do a debate in a couple weeks, and we'll have some fun.
What's his email? You know it?
Dude, go to his about page on his channel and look up his email. It's right there. Or go to his website.
Well, let me.
Clown.
Yeah. I wanted to quickly say part of the problem with me is, as I said at the beginning, I didn't see the beginning of the debate, so it may have degraded by the time I joined in. So my comments are probably not the most useful. So
No, actually, no, Anthony. The point I was making was that if you came in at the end and thought that, you have no idea what the beginning of the debate was. It was way worse, way worse at the beginning. But it was hilarious.
I'll have to go back and watch that.
Well, actually, since you brought up, I think the bacteria backbone thing earlier, Anthony, right?
Yes.
I think that's actually related to the topic I kind of wanted to bring up after everyone joined in. So I guess I feel like Kent, he sometimes says he understands certain terminology, certain jargon, but I don't think he really does. Case in point was tonight, where he was talking about the law of monophyly and just monophyletic groups in general. And he, like you said, brought up this example of, oh, well, if a invertebrate eventually gives rise, a common ancestor eventually gives rise to an animal with a backbone, doesn't that violate the law of monophyly? And the answer is it really doesn't, because it turns out groups are nested within one another. So, for example, the example I gave in the side chat was basically animals are defined by a different set of features than a backbone, obviously. So if you have a gut or something equivalent to that, you're an animal for the most part. So if you keep having that, then you're still within that category, i.e. the law of monophyly still stands. You can develop unique, what are called apomorphic features, such as a backbone that can then be inherited by groups within that new nested group. But the point I just want to make is that what Kent said doesn't actually violate monophyly. I just want to make that real clear here.
Yeah,
And I mean, Andrew, I think that's a decent point, but it goes back to what kind of we're all saying here is neither one of them wanted to actually have a conversation about that. Because
that's
I don't
true.
think AJ brought that point up in any succinct way, right? And then Kent's obviously not going to bring that up because it's against his point.
Right.
So, yeah, they just sputtered around for an hour and a half and then called it a night.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised and a little disappointed that that wasn't brought up by AJ or anyone else. But yeah, I just want to bring that up because I feel like Kent was kind of, and like you said, AJ could have brought that point up, what I just said. Yeah, that was kind of a little disappointed that wasn't talked about in as much depth as I initially hoped.
Well,
were you going to say something?
If I may add, it's I believe I've watched a lot of Kent Hovind and other creationists debate evolutionists, and I grew up in a Baptist church, so I was shown to a lot of mostly Kent Hovind seminars since a young age. And it feels kind of weird whenever I watch these debates and I hear the voice of Kent Hovind. I had this whole nostalgia thing coming back, because it's almost like he's repeating the same thing over and over again, like trying to make the same jokes here and there, try to make the same examples. The thing about you can't make a cow jump over the moon or a dog the size of Texas. I understand that as a teacher, I myself am a teacher, like there are some things that you just get used with it. But at the same time, it just feels like any debate with Kent Hovind, will just be the same thing, because I don't honestly understand why atheists try to go after the guy and keep debating him over and over again, because he's been in this for so long. Like, there's no possibility of anyone to explain evolution or even try to debate creationism or debate evolution for the same time and change anything. Like, he's been doing this for more than 2 decades, and most of the points are still the same. Most of the things are still going on.
That's
So
true.
I personally don't see what's the point of going to a debate with Kent Hovland unless it is for mockery, which is what AJ has said in his YouTube channel that he was going to do. Like,
Yeah.
surely, like, but like,
Well,
if you watch
Seth,
his streams, he literally says that he has no objective of preaching evolution for anyone or for the audience or anything. He's just there to mock at Kent Hovland. So
Seth, we have
what's
these
the point?
conversations quite a bit. Why talk to Kent Hovland? He always does the same thing. Every Kent Hovland debate is the same, and you're more or less right. But Kent Hovland is one of those big fish in this pond. You know, it's a notch on your belt. That's why a lot of people go after him. If you want to be a debater, debating Kent Hovland is one of those things you do. I mean, most Christians want to debate Aaron Ra, probably for the same reason. So, or Matt Dillahunty. It'd be that sort of thing. Matt Dillahunty's arguments don't change, but people constantly want to go after him too. So,
well, what's funny about that is I agree with what you're saying, but what really cracks me up is the number of atheists who come in to debate him and then suck really bad and come in like with no preparation and they get run over. And it's like, so you're coming in to try and get the notch on your belt. Because Seth Semper is making a great point. I agree with you 100%. People are trying to get that notch on the belt and, you know, think they're going to make it, gain subs, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, and then if you get run over by the guy who hasn't, to your point, hasn't really changed his arguments. And by the way, Seth, I think he's coming up on like 4 decades, not 2. Or he's been around for a minute, right? So it's like, if he hasn't really, I mean, he's updated his debates or his arguments somewhat, but not a ton, right? And if you come in and haven't prepared and get run over, that's bad, and that would be embarrassing. Like, why would you? To your point of, if I was going to debate Aaron Ra or Dillahunty or whatever, you better believe I would come in prepped to the freaking nines, and he may win, lose, or draw. I'm sure he's not going to go into it and just be like, "Oh, I'm just going to beat this guy, no problem," because you know, he's been around for a long time and you know he's old, so I'm going to go beat him. Like, come on now, that's the level of ego. Either ego and or like incredibly juvenile mindset is what's on full display in those kinds of scenarios, in my opinion.
And I want to be clear. I just want to say, I think Kent won the debate, but like you said, it was using very simple techniques that he's used for a long, long time, which is show me in a lab where, you know, a lizard gives birth to a rabbit or something like that. And, or not necessarily a rabbit, but a lizard gives birth to something that's not a lizard. And, you know, you'd think, knowing Kent Hovland, the debater would come in with some example that would refute that, but I didn't see that. Maybe I missed it, but I didn't see it.
The only real thing that he tried to bring up was at the very end. It might have been in Q&A, I forget, but he was trying to bring up the colony argument. But the problem with that is there's not formation of new genetic information necessary or observed for the colony function capability. So that doesn't actually support the overall position, because the capability already existed prior to, versus the real-time formation of new information necessary for the functional capacity. And that's a key thing, which is why I don't understand why so many atheists want to bring that, or evolutionary defenders want to bring that up, and because it just on the root level doesn't actually support your position. Okay, Armored Bear has just joined us. What's up, Armored Bear? How you doing? Welcome to the stream. I think it's your first. Is this your first one?
Yeah, this is my first one.
Right on. Well, appreciate you joining us. What do you think about the debate tonight?
Well, I saw the whole thing, and I have to agree with a lot of what others have said about the debate, about how AJ kept going. He immediately started with ad hominem attacks, like immediately right out the gate. Gave very little room for Dr. Kent to say anything. I mean, the one thing that I am quite concerned about is that, you know, people who don't know how to debate should not be allowed to debate. Okay. Like, I know AJ on his YouTube channel commented that this was a mock debate. It was not meant to be some sort of knockout, drag out, let's go one-on-one, mano-a-mano type of idea. Which kind of, how do I put this? It's kind of hurting to see, because I mean, I don't know. It's very shocking in my opinion. Like I said, I'm nervous, not really good at talking about all this.
No, you did well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
No, you're good, man. Don't stress about that. We're yeah, it's no big deal. We all come in first times and stuff. It's nothing to stress out about, man.
I certainly start out that way for sure.
I mean, I'm okay. Like, my point of view is, okay, I'm 19 years old. I just graduated high school. Okay, not even a year ago. And a lot of my peers and classmates look up to a lot of these high-minded scientific people who think that, you know, creation is a joke or creation is a real, like, is real. I believe, I'm a young earth creationist. I believe in the Bible. I believe in God's word. I have a lot of faith in that. And what breaks my heart is that you have people like AJ and Dr. Ken Hovind, who on both sides of the fence, yeah, they're great. You know, I wouldn't say great on AJ's case, but they have some valid points, valid arguments. I agree with a lot of what Dr. Ken Hovind says. I don't necessarily agree with a lot of AJ says, because all he does is ad hominems all day long. Like, it's just a straight up MG 34 machine gun, just birding right through people. Okay, that's all he does. But you know, it breaks my heart as a 19-year-old to see my generation and younger being taught this nonsense. You know, this atheistic evolutionary nonsense. You know, and a lot of faith is being questioned on both sides of the fence, and we as Christians need to take a stand against this more than ever. So that's my viewpoint. Go with what you want.
That's a definitely fair points there. And I think something that gets glossed over a lot is the capacity for adaptation is what it means is oftentimes blurred or misinterpreted by folks on both sides, I think. And what's necessary at the root level from a genetic code perspective is, people just want to ignore it, and what actually is required to have occurred. And to me, when you actually think about it, what is required for adaptation of any kind, even whether it's new function or adaptation of pre-existing function to account for a new variable, either side of that is the necessities for it are so mind-bending that if you don't grasp the root concepts and you just want to argue on the surface level, then there's no reasonable expectation you're actually going to truly be considering the big picture scenarios. But we got someone else joined us. Steven is in the house. Now, he and SFT have an ongoing conflict over how you actually pronounce his last name. And SFT messes it up all the time. So, Steven, SFT is in the side chat. He's going to join later. And so why don't we, just like last time, let's see if we can preempt his misinterpretation of your last name. And why don't you let him know real quick, and then tell us what you thought about the debate tonight.
Well, you always say my name right. It's like it got to be a Canadian thing, because everybody else seems to get it right.
I those Canadians. I mean, actually, Andrew, you're Canadian, right? Are you from Canada, Andrew?
No,
you're not. Okay. Where are you from?
I'm here in California.
California. Okay. Anyway, okay. So, Stephen, what did you think about the debate tonight? Did you get to see it? If so, what were your thoughts?
I did get to see most of it, and at one point I thought AJ was going to cry. His setup was a mishmash, very confusing. He didn't make any valid points. Instead, he was trying to target Kent Hovind directly, trying to sit there and attack Christianity, which is not the point of the whole debate. So I really don't understand what he was attempting to do other than just, maim and destroy anything he could get a hold of. And I think it was during the Q&A that the colony thing got brought up, and he said that, well, if one cell leaves the colony, it can't be independent because it will die, so therefore it's not really a colony, and I haven't seen evidence of that. But I did watch, I don't know if any of you who listen to God TV radio at all.
Is that Brett Keen's show?
Yeah, I do.
Yes.
A little bit.
Did any of you see the Kent Hovind versus Aiden on that one the other night?
Yeah, a little bit, not a whole lot.
Okay, well, it ended up being like 6.5 hours long and whatnot, and they let it run long, and Kent Hovind left, and somebody that works with him was there. And something that I was not aware of is he kind of let it out that evidently Kent Hovind has had at least one stroke.
Yeah, I believe he had. He had a stroke I think it was. At this point, I think it was a couple years ago. At this point, but yeah, you can tell he's got slight paralysis on one side of his body.
Well, if he has a couple more strokes, he could be president.
Let's go, Brandon.
No. He would need brain hemorrhages to equal our fearless leader, because that's Biden.
Joe Biden's on a different level of stupidity. So,
well, Biden is no longer on this planet mentally. I mean,
as Steven Crowder calls him, our former vice president.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, the Joe Biden press conferences are comedy gold, and you just watch them, and it's like, what's going to happen? I mean, I don't know if did y'all see the instruction card that the picture got taken of? A couple.
I saw that.
4 or 5 days
you will
ago?
sit down. You will speak.
Enter
you will
the
do
room.
this.
Say
Let
hello.
them sit in their chairs. Leave room.
Bro, I cannot believe a mentally deranged 5-year-old is running our nation. Like, this is the saddest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Well, the reality is that Joe Biden is not actually running the world, and we're running the United States. I mean, he's got mentors that. I mean, all I gotta say is at that outdoor event when the freaking Easter Bunny, literally the freaking Easter Bunny, told him to stop talking and like leave the reporters. It was an Easter Bunny, folks. The Easter Bunny literally runs over and tells the president, "Hey, sir, it's time for you to stop talking to the reporters."
Get down, Mr. President. Get down. Your brain is not working. Get down.
You can't make it up at this point.
All along, the Easter Bunny was running the shadow government. Interesting.
Yeah. Dude, I wonder if the Easter Bunny is our new glorious leader. I'm kind of curious.
Now, are any of you aware of the fact that during Obama's second term, he was asked if it was possible, if it wasn't for the 26th Amendment or one of the amendments, I don't keep track of most of them, that said that president could only serve 2 terms. If it wasn't for that, would he serve a 3rd term? And he said that he would serve a 3rd term as long as he had a puppet president for the media and whatnot. And I think he found it. Because
there is a lot of that Biden has a shadow. I mean, Obama has a shadow government, and he's had one. I mean, he was basically running a shadow government during the Trump administration too, and now it's just like.
Sorry. Well, I know we're off topic, but I heard that Obama strongly dislikes Biden, so I don't think that's the one problem I see with that theory.
Well, that's true. He does have a good point.
Do you think he's making him look good?
Probably. To be honest, I'm going to assume that I don't even know. It's so dumb to talk about. It's so sad because our nation has gone this far down the rabbit hole of stupidity and insanity. You know, like I said, I'm 19 years old. Okay, I didn't think America could get this bad. I didn't even think that it could.
I
But here
blame
we
that
are.
in the schools.
Yeah, that's true, dude. Like I said, okay, I've been in school I just graduated, not even a year ago. Okay,
Which state?
and sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry.
I just want to know, which state did you graduate in?
Which state? Florida. State of Florida. We didn't get it as bad. Okay, here's the thing. Like, we have Governor Ron DeSantis. He's a great governor, in my opinion, one of the best. Besides a few others. Okay, let's agree where we can be. But like I said, okay, it's not as bad as it is in California or in New York or in say somewhere up in the north, maybe even Texas, maybe, I don't know. But like I said, it's getting worse. Like, a lot of the evolutionary teachings, a lot of the left liberal, right wing, it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And I'm hoping at least very soon we can start getting people with sensible minds in the schools instead of these furries and these homosexuals. And it's just getting ridiculous.
Yeah, well, evolution's been a problem in the schools for a long time. So
yeah, when you take God out of the schools, this is what happens.
Evolution really started getting pushed about 1963, and that's when everything started taking a rapid downturn.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I'm going to need you guys to stop bashing the furries, okay? Furries are definitely
sorry.
Totally.
We're going to get thrown off of YouTube pretty soon talking about...
Listen,
they are an important part of the economy.
My bad, YouTube overlords.
Listen,
around
yes, furries have feelings too.
Listen, the Seth Emperor.
My bad. Okay.
Listen, the Seth Emperor is actually a Ewok furry. Okay, so
I apologize.
Star Wars.
But listen. Right now, he's identifying as the Sith Emperor. Okay, so he can actually he can be an Ewok furry.
No,
as long as he
surely
identifies
not.
as a Sith Emperor, it's totally fine. So
surely not.
This is actually a funny joke because I don't remember if it was in 2011 or 2012. Facebook changed its policies that now back then you could choose your gender. You could go from male, female, or type in your decision or whatever you identify yourself as. As a joke, I typed myself as the Sith Emperor because, well, if they can identify as whatever, so can
Genius.
I. So, and a lot of friends of mine were identifying themselves as planes and whatnot. And a couple months ago, I went to my Facebook and I was checking some things and I never changed that back. Okay, and it's been there for almost 10 years, and I just never looked it up again.
That's genius.
So I heard a pretty funny idea earlier today, actually, and it was you need to, if you're a white guy like me, you could identify as a curious Caucasian. And
really?
Nobody could ever question you at that point. Like, well, what are you curious about? Well, I mean, all sorts of things. I'm a very curious soul. What's your point? I mean, I identify as a curious Caucasian. Are you questioning me?
There was
I think it's actually kind of funny to do try it out and just to see what people's reactions would be, because a lot of folks would be like terrified to actually question it. Other folks would look at you like, what? And then, I think in the modern era we live in right now, I think it would be priceless to do. Like, almost needs to be something that's, hidden camera type deal. Like, go in, and you're like, doing an application or whatever, be like, are you refusing to hire me because I'm a curious Caucasian? And people would get so triggered. I think it would be priceless.
Yeah, there was a poll that, like I said, so this was kind of out of a hilarious thing we did at school. Our principal, because like I said, okay, I went to a private school. Okay, I went to public school for a while, then I went to private school for a little bit. Our principal is a savage, okay? And there was a poll that we were going to do. We did Joe Biden versus Donald Trump as like a little election game or whatever we did. And the funniest thing, okay, we had like, I don't know, like, because I was in the background just doing whatever, but I looked at our voting poll that we had, and it was just absolutely shocking. Like 10% of the school voted for Joe Biden. Like everyone else voted for Trump. You know, and I said to myself, you know, why don't we just do a creation versus evolution? I wonder where that's going to go, or what do you identify as, or what do you think of the current state of America? You know, just random questions to throw out to classmates and schoolmates. You know.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the rapidly growing problems, and it's just, well, I say rapidly growing, it's already in place in so much of modern education, is the concept of allowing for actual debate and differences of opinion and real discourse. It's no longer acceptable. Like, you're not allowed to have alternative opinions unless they're the ones that are currently accepted.
Or bow down to my saying, or get out, you know, type of ordeal.
And there's a Supreme Court case that just got ruled on this week over two guys who were speaking at a college campus, and they didn't know initially. They didn't know that you had to have a permit, and you could only speak in the free speech zone. It's like,
bruh.
So, and then it's like, wait, hang on. Let's think about this for a second. Number one, why do you have to have a permit for the First Amendment? Number one.
I know.
Number two, after you acquire said permit, why are you only allowed to use it inside of a square? Like, I can only use it on this physical space is where I can actually use my First Amendment permit. Like,
well, I have a question about that.
That's insane. Go ahead.
Do you know if it was a private school or a public school? Because private schools can kind of set those rules, but if it was a public school, that would be a huge problem, in my opinion.
It was a public school. It was a public school. But
I graduated from private. Sorry, I graduated.
I was talking about the Supreme Court case.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my bad. I thought that was directed at me. My bad. Brand new to all this.
The Supreme Court case, but I believe it was public, but that's irrelevant. A private school is not allowed to. That'd be like saying in a private high school, that the kid no longer has a First Amendment. Now, you can potentially.
Honestly, I kind of disagree with you there, because they do own that property. The private schools don't receive state funding, so it's almost like a business, and they can't.
Anthony, hang on. You can fire somebody. You could expel somebody, but you can't arrest somebody for free speech.
Yeah, you can't. That's against the Constitution.
Even on private property, like, you can't. Yes, you could arrest me for trespassing. You could arrest me for a variety of things, but you can't arrest me for free speech, and that's not valid. That's not valid.
But correct me if I'm wrong. From what I understood from the school situation, like the free speech permit, it was something like, if you didn't say, if you did violate that free speech permit and set a piece of your mind in a place that you're not allowed to, you would just be expelled or removed from that property. You cannot go arrested for that. Or if that's the case, then correct me if I'm wrong. Because I understood that you could be expelled or removed from an area if you didn't follow that rule that they imposed.
Yeah, down here in the good old land of Florida, I actually have many friends that went from the private school that I graduated from and was in for a long time to public school, and they were. I met up with them for a little bit, and we kind of broke off a little bit. But I asked them a question. I said, "Are you allowed to talk freely about controversial or kind of iffy topics in the school still?" Because remember, okay, our great, awesome governor that he is, he will put a stop to a lot of the things that are happening, but not everything he can do. She told me, she goes, well, not everything. You cannot speak about God hardly. You can't speak about certain topics, such as the war in Ukraine, which was like kind of odd. I was like, okay, what? You can't talk about the racial violence and all that. I was like, okay, whoa. it's very mind blowing. You know, it's just a lot of the kids are being controlled on what they say. And I asked her, I said, well, what happens if I walk in and just decided to hold a press conference about it in the school, just randomly? She said, I'll be either like LPP said, you know, either arrested for trespassing or thrown off the premises and then charged. I was like, wow, okay. And that's in our public school system.
My point was, go ahead.
You were speaking about a press conference inside the school and announced, or just
well, yeah, like or announced, or like I didn't mean to say press conference. That's too bad of a wording. I'm talking about like I just walked in as a student because remember, actually I didn't say this, but I was still in the private school before I graduated, so I can just, you know, I don't know. It was just very strange. I was just asking out of like curiosity's sake, really. But yeah, she was just like dumbfounded too. I was like, wow.
My understanding,
Sorry, my bad.
My understanding is that if you go onto the property of a private school, they can arrest you and throw you off for any reason. But if you go and try to like spread the gospel on a public school property, then at that they cannot remove you at that point because the property is technically owned by the public, so they don't have the same ability to, you know, control the law enforcement there.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Like I said, okay, I didn't technically get thorough with all the questions because it was a very hot topic that we were on, but the part where people can come in and say whatever they want in a private school, that's not true. Like I've been in it all my life. It's a Christian school, of course. So we had several people who came in from different parts of walk of life, and you know, they gave a little bit of their point of view, not a whole lot, but they did not allow racial or, you know, all that topic to be said. Because, you know, that's something that needs to be kept at home, not at school, if you want it to be. Okay. Now, the only thing that will be people who will be arrested are sex offenders and people who are on file for sexual things that they've done. They can be arrested and thrown off the property. So, yeah. I mean, anybody can, of course, out of any school.
So by the way, in this case that I was referring to, I don't know if they were arrested, but it says they was, quote, stopped by campus police. Stopped from speaking by campus police.
Right. So my question was, is it a private school or a public school? Because if it's a public school, it's a private school, I actually do agree that they have that authority. But if it's a public school, then
that's
okay. But here's the thing you have to remember: like, even if it's private property, you can require somebody to leave, but you can't do it because they were speaking. Okay,
I agree with that.
Like, there's a legal designation, right? So you can say, "I want you off my property," and then if you refuse to, then you're guilty of trespass. But if you're not saying leave because I don't want you on my property, and you're saying you can't talk anymore, right? It's like, well, you can't tell me I can't talk unless you
welcome to the Soviet Union,
kicking me out, right? You can tell me to leave, and you can say the reason I'm having to leave is because I'm talking, but you can't just say like you're not allowed to talk anymore. Like that's I'm talking about from a legal designation perspective. Now, from what actually occurs, if you got like the jackass at the movie theater, right, who's like talking in the middle of the movie and stuff, and you know, come over, hey, can you please be quiet and whatnot? And the guy's like, well, I'm not going to be quiet anymore, and you're causing a nuisance and all that kind of stuff. Now, if they have security or police come and actually physically remove that person at that point, then they wouldn't be. If let's assume they wanted to press charges at some point, right? The charges would not be they violated free speech zones.
It would be disorderly conduct.
That would not be the charge. It would be public nuisance, trespass, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a clear distinction, and those are things that have to be addressed. Even when you're addressing private property versus public property, which I agree with you, though, if it was a public school, then, or a state-funded institution, then slightly different rules would apply versus what could be done by the private versus what could be done by the private school. But at the same time, many private schools still get grants from state and federal governments, so then they still put themselves into additional restrictions on what they're allowed to do if they're accepting grant money, even if they're a quote-unquote private school. So there's a lot of
gray area in that regard, because then again, that's the whole issue. Like, how if for instance, a Catholic private school gets a fund from the government, how much does that change the legal rules that it has to follow? Like, is a difference about how much money they are getting?
A little bit.
Like,
Is
there a law on that regard? It's just because I'm not familiar with that sort of legal issues on education.
Like I said, I've been to a private school. It wasn't a Catholic, but it was just Baptist. So I don't know. Rules change, denomination. It's very weird. It's very odd. I don't know a lot about that.
As well, as I presume.
Yeah, state to state. Yeah. Here's the thing. So our school, like every other school, follows a county. The county follows the state. The state follows the whatever. Okay. I mean, our county. I love our county, but not really. Unfortunately, that I'm in. So it's very strange. I don't know, really. I mean, like as Dr. Kenthoven said one time, I was watching one of his things. One of his videos, and he said, why don't we just make private schools for evolution? I was like, yeah, that's a pretty good idea. If you want to go teach that thing, go make a private school about it. Don't make it in the public. And a really interesting question is, should we even have public schools? Because, I mean, isn't that a Marxist idea? If I'm correct, please don't shoot the question or the messenger of the question.
Well, public schools...
Pretty sure public schools predate Marx. Like, it's more of one of those things that Marxism appropriated in order to get things. But the concept of a government-funded education system for, quotation marks, everyone, it's an idea created after the French Revolution, which is the whole idea of a centralized state nation has to have a centralized education for all of its citizens to learn the same thing everywhere, like this planned thing, because otherwise you'd have a decentralized education and could give more separatism ideas. So this is a more unifying system to keep the country united on its own thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a very nationalist idea,
yeah.
So that's where like the whole idea of like a national curriculum, a whole system, like teaching only one language, only one official language, because back before those policies were implemented in the United States, you had Japanese schools that would teach only Japanese, only German, only Spanish, and people would go around that, and then we became a country that enforces English only or English majority, and now everyone speaks English.
Yeah, isn't that kind of like what Napoleon instituted when he took over? Like it was called the Napoleonic Code that a lot of the nations still use today.
Yeah,
not a whole lot, but I know the Europeans do.
It's around that same concept. It's from from nationalism ideas that got spread around the globe during the French Revolution. And sure, Marxists appropriated that concept for them, but it far predates them. That's all that I'm saying. Like, I'm not saying that Marxists dislike the idea. They like it a lot, but
I know
still something that comes older.
I agree. Yeah.
Well, I would say that the Marxists definitely they took a variety of concepts, right? Marx took a variety of concepts, and obviously people after him, they've looked at different things that existed and said, "Oh, we can take this premise and then apply it inside of our ideology to an end objective. I mean, I think we're observing that in a variety of, we observe that in a variety of ways. I mean, there's so many different things you could do. I mean, Hitler did the same thing, right? Like, I think one of his famous sayings was, "I don't have to convince you. I've already got your son." And in relation to
take over the schools by
the young brown.
Give me the textbook. Give me the textbooks. I'll control the state, or something like that.
Well, the Marxists appropriated evolutionary theory. If you look, because Communist Manifesto was written before Darwin's work, but as soon as Darwin put it out, Marx communicated with Darwin and said this fits very well. And the Soviet Union, I saw Snake was right debating someone, I think yesterday, and he said the communists didn't believe in evolution. I couldn't believe he said something so untrue, because the entire Soviet Union promoted Lysenkoism, which was an attempt to, like, the Soviet Union communists basically utilizing a propagandist to promote atheism throughout the entire society. So he was just wrong there.
Yeah, but you know what I find interesting? So I actually did a lot of research on the Soviet Union for a small project that I was doing. And what I find interesting is that a lot of the basis of anti-God, anti-Jesus Christ, anti-Holy Spirit, anti-everything is written within the Marxist code. And what Lenin did, which was very, I'm not calling the man smart, but let's give him credit where credit is due. Okay. Yeah, he was a very wicked man. Okay, he was a very wicked man. Okay. But he actually, when he went into the Soviet Union, Tsarist Russia, because it was before he took it over. He tried to spread the Decemberist, I think it was the, not Decemberist revolt, it was the, I think it was the February Revolution or something. It was one of the revolutions just before he came in and took it over. He was trying to spread the wildfire of his beliefs, Marxist ideas, evolutionary ideas. And the Tsar at the time, Tsar Nicholas II, which, if you look at the Tsardom of Russia, is very interesting, because a lot of what they believe is Orthodox Christianity. And, it's very strange. I can't explain it because I don't have my paper with me, unfortunately. I threw it away, which I shouldn't have done. But it's very interesting how a lot of everything connects. It's like connecting dots. It's like solving a puzzle. And I find that interesting, of how one man can corrupt an entire nation within just years after his passing. It's very interesting.
Yeah. And if no one else has anything to say, I know I'm talking a lot here, but going back to the public schools and the origin of the United States, which is a question Armored Bear brought up originally. The United States had public schools going back to its founding, which was well before Marx, but you can actually find textbooks from that era. And they were, if you look at the textbooks, they had Bible quotes in them. They had biblical teachings in them. So one thing I constantly hear from atheists is that teaching religion in public schools is a violation of the Establishment Clause of the Constitution. But apparently the Founding Fathers didn't think so, because you can go look at textbooks from the early times of American history. They have all kinds of Bible quotes in there, all kinds of Bible teachings, teaching it as truth, teaching creationism. So I kind of forced that, in my opinion.
Well, the ultimate hypocrisy on the separation of church and state can be embodied by the fact that all sessions of Congress are literally opened in prayer. There is a chaplain. So if you're going to say that it has to be separation of church and state, and it specifically is designated in the Constitution, therefore that means it would 100% apply to the federal government, right? If that is true. But that's somehow, like, no prayer in schools, no religion in school, whatever, yada yada, because of separation of church and state. Well, then why is it still in Congress? That doesn't make any sense. If
it's totally hypocrisy.
And I've wondered why that has never been. I'm sure. I assume there's been litigation. I'll have to look it up. There probably has been litigation, but if there has been, obviously they lost, right, in court. if it has been litigated. So the fact that I'm forgetting the guy's name. I read his book. It's he's one of the lead attorneys for the Freedom from Religion Foundation, and I read his book on like why America or United States is not a Christian nation, and the arguments he was making were just so pathetic. I mean, it's just so weak. As I'm sitting there listening, I'm like, I'm sitting there thinking, like, dude, you're gambling that the average American is so ignorant of history that they're just going to buy it. They're going to buy into the BS that you're spewing right now. I mean, it was astonishing.
They rely on people not knowing the history. That's all they rely on. There's no truth on their side.
One of the things that I apologize for interrupting. I just want to ask this in a thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when the United States signed the Constitution and all those issues were passed and all, back in England, the king was not only the supreme ruler, but was also the chief of the Church of England. So there was a strong connection of the church you went and the ruler you had, because being from another branch of Christianity back then would be akin to treason, because you will not be recognizing the supreme authority of the ruler. So when the United States becomes a federation of states and independent from the King of England, the separation of church and state seems like a way to prevent something like that. Like, you can belong to any church you want, and that will not be political treason.
The entire concept of the separation of the Establishment Clause. There's no separation of church and state in the Constitution. It's the Establishment Clause, and basically, you can go read Thomas Jefferson's treatise about religious liberty, and it kind of explains it as the government cannot force a person to be a member of any religion.
Yeah, because that oh, sorry, my bad.
Yeah,
sorry.
That's it. That's what the Establishment Clause means. The government cannot force you to attend or affirm the creeds of a certain church. But if you look at the history, when the Constitution was first signed, the state constitutions from that time did establish. So it was really to prevent just the federal government. I'll let someone else go though.
Yeah, because I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt earlier. Like I said, I'm brand new to all this, but yeah, he is correct. A from Virginia is very much correct. The Establishment Clause, with all the talk about the government cannot control what you need to believe, that's kind of basically being the Soviet Union in a way, and that's not fair to those who want to live freely in America to do whatever they want. America was mainly founded on the principles of the Bible, and we are a democratic republic. We can freely choose to who we want to vote in, who we don't want to be in office, and we have certain rights that need to be followed. And people like to sit there and try to bend the rules to say, well, I want this in, I want to become this, so I'm going to force the government, kind of like what the homosexuals are doing and the LGBTQ community. Sorry, I can't go there. But they're trying to bend the rules so that the government can go, okay, fine, we'll let you get a whole year of being you, okay, and we're not going to say anything about it. But if a Christian dares speaks up against this, or a person who has right-minded values, the government immediately gets on top of this, like, no, you can't say anything. Get out of here, we don't want you. And I see the total hypocrisy on both sides of the fence. It's hilarious to sit back and watch it. Sometimes I wouldn't say it was I think it is a hypocrisy if you take a step back and look at it. But yeah, that's my view on it.
Sith Emperor had a good point. You're 100% right on one of the reasons many of the colonists came to America was to escape the persecution and the accusations of treason and such you're referring to, in defying the king and the Church of England. The only thing I would say you're wrong on would be while they were the head of the Church of England post Magna Carta,
I think I am. Yeah, my bad.
they weren't absolute leader anymore in England, but still had a lot of power for sure. Now, in relation to the argument in the modern era that I hear from people all the time about the Establishment Clause, which is completely violent. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So, just for example, New Hampshire kept its established religion until 1817, Connecticut until 1818, and Massachusetts didn't abandon its state support for Congregationalism until 1833. So, if you assume that the Constitution was ratified in 1787, that's a long time for there to be, we have to have separation of church and state. Well, really? Because you didn't. And now the level to which it was enforced, right, where people still, there's a difference between quote unquote, the state recognized denomination versus you being required by law to comply, right? There's a big difference. I'm talking about in comparison to like England and most of Europe, to be honest, during the Catholicism's domination, the Spanish Inquisition, all that kind of stuff. Totally different dynamics there. But the reason I'm bringing this up is kind of in line with my point about the level of ignorance of the average American of our own history. It's like, so if it's always been this way and it never was anywhere other way, then how do you explain the three examples I just gave you, right? And every time I've had those conversations with folks, it's with a couple of minor exceptions I can think of, the eyes glaze over and it's like, I have no idea what he's talking about. I've never heard this before.
And then they go on the internet and they're like, I don't know what this man's saying about he's attacking me. Yep.
Okay, so real quick, Wesley's joining us. What's up, Wesley? How you doing? I'm glad to see you've looks like you're still in your apartment. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. Doing dishes, listening to you guys and seeing, just eager to hear you first. And I bought a piano. It's bought it last month. It doesn't get here for a few more days. So things are going okay. I'm still batshit crazy. So the claims that are you on your meds will be met with, I should have. But let me just sit back and listen to you guys. Maybe if I have something I think is important to say, I'll raise my hand.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Sounds good. Stephen, I think we've been rambling for a few minutes. I think I saw you were about to say something a few minutes ago, and I think you got cut off.
Who?
You.
Oh, me. Oh, okay. I probably coughed or something and it triggered it. But if you get me talking, you might not be able to get me to shut up. That's the only thing.
Go for it. It. Let it out.
Now, where you were talking about the schools, originally the schools fell under the jurisdiction of the church anyway. So if we're talking separation of church and state, why is the state in the school system?
Because it's Marxism.
Well, I'm just saying, traditionally that was a church area. The same with marriage, and yet the state is involved in that. But church and state was never designed to keep the church out of the state. It was to keep the state out of the church so that we didn't have dictated what religion that we had to sit there and join. I've never understood how they try to turn that argument around, considering how it is not in the Constitution as far as an actual separation of church and state like they claim. That was in a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote somebody that he mentioned it?
I believe so, yeah.
Well, we are talking about a time in which people who have never read the Constitution somehow think that abortion is a constitutional right. So
no, it's not. It's never been.
I mean, I know it hasn't been, but I'm saying there's a lot of people who, when they're questioned, actually think that it's written into the Constitution that abortion is legal. And to my reason I bring this up in terms of the ignorance of the average American these days, as a result of, not in the only case, but a major result of our public education system removing a lot of this knowledge from the curriculum, which is an unavoidable fact. Civics, almost all it's started to come back, but after the instantiation of the Department of Education under Carter, I want to say it was like 78 or something like that, I believe it was like 1986. Civics had been removed from like 90-something% of public schools in America. And then it was gone for 20 plus years. And then we have an entire generation of people who were completely ignorant of basic constitutional law, like concepts, general civics, and separation of powers and such. And then now, fast forward to where we are now, we have all these multiple generations that are completely ignorant of these things and are able to be swayed from an emotional perspective because they don't have the foundational knowledge of our form of government and precedent and all that kind of stuff. And then for folks like me, I speak for myself because I do have pretty good backing and knowledge backing in this stuff. It drives me at the wall. I freak out and flip out on people. So I'm like, how can you possibly be this ignorant in the era of Google, in which you can go and read basic history and very rapidly absorb this information, then realize that you're being lied to by politicians on both sides? I'm not talking just the right, not just the left. Both parties are leveraging ignorance to achieve different objectives. Good.
Well, you said in the age of Google, I would say Google and Wikipedia and a lot of these Reddit are actively trying to promote this. And that's why people need to wake up to the fact that when they Google something, there's videos out there showing they manipulate the algorithm to give a predetermined result. And it's always for atheistic secular humanism. So people are Googling questions, these serious questions about life and God and nature and all that. In Google, it's a bunch of communist atheists at the top manipulating the search results, and that's what they're seeing.
I agree. Yeah, that's the sad thing about our generation today. And what's I'm sorry, I'm gonna hop back real quick to earlier. My history teacher, or actually she was American history, excuse me. Sorry, my brain kind of died there. She actually gave us a quiz on the Constitution and gave us questions and stuff that were not even on her study guide or anything. So we were kind of like, oh, okay, this ought to be interesting. And she gave us a bunch of questions about church and state. Should we be separated? Should we not be separated? Should we go and believe in whatever we want to? Should the states have total control over the school system? Should we have total control over the school systems? Or should certain people be allowed to control the school systems? And all these questions that she asked, it was very interesting to see a lot of the kids and a lot of my classmates, and especially myself, come out and explain our beliefs. And it was very interesting, very interesting. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's all these videos of insiders leaking meetings from Google's directors and all that. They're admitting they're intentionally manipulating the search. This is probably the biggest threat to human society, is because these massive search engines and information websites like Google, and Google owns YouTube, and Wikipedia and Reddit, these people are preloading the deck in favor of atheism and
let's not forget TikTok too. Sorry, let's not forget TikTok.
Oh, TikTok's horrible. So horrible.
Yeah, ain't that the truth?
I created a TikTok account and then was like,
turn it off in like 3 seconds. Nope.
Oh, delete. I can't. Well, okay, so it's ironic because my background's in tech, right? So I was heavily involved in software, apps, all that kind of stuff, professionally.
But real quick, LP. Real quick, LP. Oh, sorry. I watched your debate on what's his name? Godless Engineer. Dude, I was wheezing for 45 minutes on that debate. It was hilarious to see him just stutter and go, on just simple code and binary.
In fairness to Atheist Jr., I did give him a hard time about his ad hominems towards Hovind. And in fairness, the first 6 minutes of my opening statement against Godless Engineer was me showcasing how dumb he was and why we were having the debate we were having. But then the second half of the closing 2/3 of my opening statement were all my arguments for my position. So I must give Atheist Jr. a slight pass because I don't want to be double standards. I did kind of use Godless Engineer's words against him, in fairness. So,
but I mean,
it's a bit weird. And going full circle back to where we began this whole conversation, it kind of annoys me when people go to a debate with Kent Hovind and they all do the ad hominem attacks. Because at the end of the day, it's so easy to go on the internet, go on YouTube, and find tons of videos, tons of articles, tons of things saying all the most terrible things that allegedly Kent Hovind did and didn't, and yada yada. Like, why bother? Like, at that point in time, like, it's why bother prepare to a debate if you can just read a couple articles, watch 2 hours of YouTube videos, trash talking the guy, and just go to debate with him and like, yeah, you are this and this and this, and you did this. Like, why bother?
Because it's for you know what it is, it's for social media points and credits to say, oh look, I bashed a Christian, I bashed a guy who's been attacking our religion that is not even real, and you know, it's for social media credit. That's all it is for. And that's the sad thing that are
I would agree with you to an extent. I think another portion of it is the the lack of recognition of the importance of doing an actual analysis of somebody's arguments versus your personal opinion of them, right? And it's basic logic, it's basic debate skills, but in the modern era, people are not taught that that's what you should do, right? And I don't mean from a formal debate standpoint. I'm talking about just in general conversation, politics. I mean, we see it in politics all the time, right? Like, the vast majority of the things you hear on the news, or even in like political debates, primaries, all that kind of stuff, right? It's short little sound bites with no actual substance, and the opponents 9 times out of 10 don't actually respond to what their opponent has said. They go
straight for the ad hominem. Ad
hominem, or they just go off and like don't actually answer the question, and they go off.
They'll just go off in their own la la land. You know, this is what
on a tirade and not actually be engaging in actual debate. Debate has not existed in at least the United States in the political level. It stopped. I would say probably the 1992 presidential election was the end of any kind of remotely substantive debate between the candidates. I mean, it vanished. I mean, I remember watching Ross Perot, H.W. Bush, and Clinton's debates and being like going back. I mean, like after I was much older, going back and watching them, and was like, wow, the arguments that were put forward, like Ross Perot, for example, like the arguments he was making about the economy, what was going to happen, his predictions, all this kind of stuff, were extraordinarily substantive. And
they were incredible. Yeah.
Fast forward to now, it's like, I'm going to stop all the bad stuff from happening, and the economy's going to be awesome. And that's just, we're going to do some stuff, and I'm going to do some executive orders, and then everything's going to be great. You vote for me, and I'm going to give you some free stuff. Like, that's what we've come down to in modern, Western civilization. This applies to Europe too. I mean, same thing's happening in Europe. I grew up in England, and it's taken a while. It's kind of ironic. So, the UK already has a bunch of socialist policies instantiated there, but they have. It's kind of funny. There's like a lot more rules on political campaigning and such. Like, you're only allowed to have X amount of money. You can't. There's a lot of limitations. Let's say people actually have to go knock on doors and stuff. Like, how many candidates in the United States actually go knock on doors and have direct face-to-face conversation with their constituents? Basically none, right?
Yeah,
they're not actually.
Because they don't want to get shot or they don't want to get attacked because
they might do a town hall. They do a town hall every once in a while. There's little stuff, there's some videos, but they're not actually out engaging. And once they get elected, they're definitely not engaging with their constituents. Once they get elected, it's like, oh yeah, you guys exist. Oh yeah. Oh well. It's 4-year term.
So, yikes.
So in
I don't know.
You know,
Trump
oh,
did.
can I say something real fast? I don't mean to interrupt. Sorry if I did. You know what's very interesting? I watched a small clip on so far it's so somebody online, I don't remember where. I have to go find it if I can. I'll probably put it in the chat. Somebody did a timeline of Joe Biden's quote unquote promises to the African American community. And you look at it now, he has done. There was one person that one young lady came up and said, you know, he's done nothing for us still, nothing, not even supported us, not helped us out. And, you know, it's very shocking how, unfortunately, our politicians today have not delivered on promises. It's very empty, you know, and it hurts younger generations like me who have to sit here and grow up in an America and in a world who delivers on empty promises. But, you know, that's just the way it is, unfortunately. Maybe it will change. I hope so. I'm a very futuristic type of person. I like to look to the future. I don't like to look to the present as much, but yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. It's even worse when we start to think that like some politicians, they can actually be elected by not only making empty promises, like promises that they don't want to fulfill, but promises that are impossible to fulfill because they are so vague that they can do whatever in that regard, and somehow is still get away with it because it's such a vague promise, such a vague concept.
Whose fault is that? Do you think? Whose fault is it in the end?
Yeah, but like that happened.
It's our fault,
during
I think, right?
It is our fault.
Yeah. Sorry,
like
my brain kind of died there.
The most recent example that I can remember is the whole defund the police. Like,
oh no,
sure, defund the police. So what? Like, what will change? Like, what are you proposing exactly? Oh no, defund the police, defund the police. Come on, let's sit down, sit here. Okay, let's say the police get this amount of cash. What should we do with it? The police needs this needs vehicles, need ammo, needs paychecks, a lot of things. Like, where exactly?
Yeah.
And no, it's just an empty promise. Like, you can just cut the funding of the police and that's it. And
I don't think the problem is these politicians. The politicians know what they're doing. The problem is the people are too stupid.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
But you know, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt real quick, but you know what's I'll get my statement done real quick. So here's the issue people don't understand. When you defund the police, you're taking away from their training, you're taking away from their ability to, you know, get qualified good training is what I'm trying to say. Okay, what's the difference between a taser and a gun? What's the difference between pepper spray and a baton? Okay, we have in our county, in my county especially, our law enforcement is well equipped, well trained. Okay, but when you have mishaps in a major urban environment, like in the cities, like such as New York, Los Angeles, California, okay, when a police officer is in that moment.
Hey, Armor Bear, real quick. We're getting crazy static coming from you. Hop out and refresh real quick, and then come back in.
All right.
Well, going on with what I was, this is why I don't support term limits, because all you're doing is, you're changing out the politician, but you're not changing out the voter. The voters need to understand, like, if we term limit Nancy Pelosi, San Francisco is just going to re-elect another Nancy Pelosi in her place. So that's why a lot of conservatives think term limits will solve the problem. No.
Oh, well, okay. Well, hold on. I don't disagree with you in relation to the voters need to be educated. However, I do think, I mean, you're not going to solve everything with one stroke, right? So I think that term limits are one of many things that needs to be implemented if we want to have any reasonable expectation of being able to overcome this. So, for example, the reason I say that is like, okay, I agree with you that we need to educate the voters. But if the groups that are trying to institute reform are constantly crushed by the establishment on both sides, which works together in order to propagate their ongoing dictates, right? Until we remove their power from the equation, we're never going to be able to institute a lot of the, or as many of the reforms as we'd like to. As long as McConnell and Pelosi and McCarthy and Schumer are the leaders, right, and at no real risk of being beaten, they control everything, right? I mean, it's like when the young guy, the young men and women come into Congress and try to make changes, and the voters in their districts elect people to go make a change, but then the party leaders like ban them from all committees and basically give them zero influence. We're not actually
Is this a little bit better, guys, or no?
It's still coming through a little bit staticky for me. How about you guys hearing static still?
I'm not hearing, but if you say
I'm hearing a little bit.
Okay, all right. Hold on 1 second. Let me go try something real quick.
Well, I can understand people who think term limits. There's an argument there. The problem there, but first of all, term limits will get rid of some of the good politicians too. So that needs to be understood. Second of all, if you don't change the mind of the population, let's say we get rid of McConnell. Let's say we get rid of by term limits, Pelosi and some of these other bad. You see what happened? Like, look what happened with Cuomo in New York. He got taken out because of the sexual assault allegations, and they put in a woman who's just like he is, does the same things or worse. So changing out the politicians doesn't solve the problem. The problem is the people who are voting for them. So I also think term limits cause a problem with restricting people's freedom to vote for who they want. So
okay. So then, do you support a constitutional amendment revocation, and presidents are allowed to serve as many terms as they get elected?
Well, I get asked this question a lot when I bring this up, and my response is I don't support term limits except for that one position, the president, just because there's so much power allocated in one individual that maybe I would actually probably agree with extending from 2 terms to maybe more than 2 terms. But if there was one public servant position that needs a term, it'd probably be the president.
What about the justices?
Limit them.
No, I don't support maybe age limits, as we've seen, could be quite useful, because they're Ginsburg hanging on until her last breath made no sense. So maybe put in an age limit, but term limits.
Well, okay, I mean, so an age limit would be a term limit.
So there'd be a term limit because of cognitive ability and function. It wouldn't be like you're serving whatever time length.
Oh, and then, okay. So then, do you apply age limits to Congress and the presidency?
Ideally.
These are good questions, I guess.
I mean, I said that, but I would agree with you. I would agree with you. I mean, we've got Nancy Pelosi is freaking 82 years old. That woman literally zones out in the middle of press conferences. It always gets bleeped out. If you watch like the C-SPAN version of Nancy Pelosi press conferences, there is a lot of times where she zones out for like 30 or 40 seconds. She'll be in the middle of a sentence, and you see her eyes glaze over, and she just like stares out, mouth open, drooling, and there's all these people standing around her. The reporters, she's on camera. It always gets edited out in what you see on TV, but I have literally watched her just completely like go brain dead for 30. I don't mean just like forgot where she was, what she was saying. I mean, she vanishes. Her fucking soul leaves the body, and she goes and vanishes off somewhere into the ether. Who knows? And then she like snaps back, and she's like carries on the conversation. Everybody acts like it was totally normal. I mean, think about that, folks.
But
the Speaker of the House, the current Speaker of the House, third in line for the presidency. We've got senile Biden and senile freaking Pelosi, and we have the cackling Queen Kamala Harris in between. Yeah. I mean, it's like, but in general, it's like the whole point of like the term limits. So, Anthony, if you're in favor of age limits, which is it's a type of term limit, why are you against term limits in general? Because what if, like, for example, if the age limit is in place, would you support Scalia, of course he's dead now, or like Clarence Thomas having to leave the court right now because he's like, let's say it's like 70, let's say 70 years old is the term limit, just for an arbitrary number. He's over 70, therefore would you be wanting Clarence Thomas to retire?
Well, I think if we were going to establish an age limit, it would have to be something where almost everyone would agree if you're this age, your brain is just not capable of doing the job. So is that 70? Is that 80? I'd probably say, I mean, this is a question we'd have to think about it if it became a possibility, but in principle, I would support age limits, yes.
But what
how about cognitive tests instead?
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Sorry, real quick. Okay, the thing is, okay, I asked one of my classmates this a long time ago, and I said, hey, you know, what do you think about, should we elect younger people to be president? Like, say, in their late 40s, early 50s, mid 50s, and cut it off at the age of 65. Just cut it off. Like, when they hit 65, get them out. Don't let them finish the term, get them out. Okay. And I got a surprising response. This person was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go for it. And then I said, well, okay, what if, say, okay, this person has a lot of great ideas for America and for our generations and next generations and people who are already, you know, older generations of us. Okay. Is that fair to them? You know, you got to look at it from all viewpoints. Okay. Is it fair to the person that's in office, depending on cognitive ability? You know,
well,
it's kind of like if I elected LPP to be president, and then I said, actually, well, no, I don't like him. Let's throw him out. You know, that's not fair. You know, I'm not trying to say let's favor Joe Biden. I'm not.
This is where general term limits become much more reasonable as a solution. So let's say you have for the Senate, for example, right? A Senate term is 6 years. Okay. Like 3 terms would be 18 years. That is a pretty reasonable amount of time to have that level of power. And if you manage to get elected 3 times, congratulations. And then you need to go fade off into the sunset. If you are a member of Congress, it's 2 years, right? So let's put a cap, 6 terms, right? That's 12 years. Pretty good, a reasonable amount of time. And yeah, you might not, you know, for the people that are really good, that would suck when they have to leave. But let's just be honest. There's a lot more political assholes that would be better to get rid of than the good ones that we would be sad to see go. Let's just be honest.
But
that is reality.
Guys, if I may ask, what do you want? Not for yourselves, but each of you. I'd like to hear what each of you would say you would want for everybody. If you could give something to everybody on Earth, what would you want for them? What would you want to give to them? And for me, most recently,
loving $1 million.
A 3-day pizza party celebrating the reversal of Roe versus Wade. That would be what I would want for the world. So
I agree. Let's go. I'll take some Dominoes.
Well,
what do you want everybody to have? Not what these guys that we're going to imagine what they're thinking and say, but what do you want people to have?
I've thought the most important thing for any person to have in the world is running water. Because I've lived in a society where there is no running water, and it was so miserable that I realized it seems so basic to Americans, but when you don't have that running water, it is so hard to live.
Fair. Well, as a young person who's 19, and like I said, I mean, I'm brand new to this whole new aspect of adult life, so to say. But looking at it, I would say fair and equal justice on all levels. Fair and equal justice. Okay. Is it fair for, and I'll give an example. Is it fair for how do I put this? Is it fair for cops to be, so I'm going to get on this issue real quick. And I'm going to hop off to another. Say a cop who thinks that, he owns the badge is better than, like, I'm talking about the bad ones. not the good ones, the bad ones. Okay. Like he goes out and commits a crime. Okay. He doesn't get arrested or charged. He gets off the hook because he has friends in high places. That's not fair. Okay. Or say somebody across the street commits a crime and he gets away with it 2 years later. Okay. He gets out of prison and like, oh, brand new life. You know, I mean, there's nothing wrong with, well, actually, like I said, it's brand new to me. So I don't know. I mean,
Well,
it's a very interesting question.
Something has to be considered in line of that example, right? Of and this goes back to term limits, Anthony. The police, the American police have been turned, and not in 100% fashion, but a lot of them, especially in major metros, they've turned into
the physics genius wants term limits.
Bro, dude, Mr. Weston, man, you got my mind like doing 600 loops, man. That ain't fair.
The police.
This ain't supposed to be happening here, brother.
The police in many cities have turned into the Gestapo enforcement agents for politicians. And that's just a fact. It's an unavoidable fact. They're collection agents. They're protection for the political establishment. Because you got to think about it. If you have look at organized crime, you have enforcers for the mob that go out and collect money, force people to do things they don't want to do, and you have to bow and scrape to whatever their orders are, right? Whether or not you agree or disagree with them. Well, what the hell do we think is happening in modern politics, right? We witnessed this we watched this happen in 2020, right? Governors and mayors issued orders that were unconstitutional, and then they had the police go out and enforce them. And not across the board 100%, but in many, many, many locations, we heard, oh, it was an order, I had to do it, even though it's in direct violation of the Constitution, right? So for example, in New York City, a number of kids that were beaten by the police for sitting on their porch after the curfew, right? Like not on somebody else's porch, not on a public street, on their own porch. Like I can't sit on my porch. You're going to come, you're going to extract me from my porch, drag me into the street and beat the crap out of me for violating a curfew when I'm sitting on my own private property. Like that's a direct violation of the Constitution right there.
I hear what you're saying. And
sorry. See, that's
Armored Bear. It's Anthony's turn. Go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, my bad. That's why I was trying to shut my own mouth.
I agree with what you're saying about the police. What happened with COVID actually, began to start to think the same thing about the military, because if you look at what happened in Australia, they were enforcing the lockdowns with the military. So it made me think if there was a situation very serious like that, the cops have proved to be what you said, authoritarian, but in a more serious situation, I think the military would pose a bigger problem, because the rank and file soldiers are patriots, but if you look at the people at the top, they're the globalists. They're the ones picked and chose by the Pelosi and the Biden types. So it made me start asking questions like, if there was a serious authoritarian push in this country, which side would the military be on?
Well, that's a very good point. And what I'm very concerned about is so during the Obama administration, there were 200 and something, I forget the exact numbers. I think it was like 216 majors, colonels, and generals that came out publicly and stated that they had been called in for review, had been directly asked if they were willing to violate posse comitatus, and when they said no, were immediately relieved of command. So if a couple hundred of them are willing to come out publicly, there's no.
Does that mean you shirk your responsibility?
No. Posse comitatus is a law that is specifically in place to prevent the utilization of the United States military on domestic soil for law enforcement. It's a law that says, hey, soldiers, if you're ordered to go out and shoot your fellow citizens and do all that kind of stuff, and act as law enforcement agents and policy enforcement for politicians, those are unlawful orders and you can refuse. That's a Pars Comitatus is at the root. And when soldiers swear their oaths and everything else, they are informed of Pars Comitatus, right? And so the point I'm making is all these high-level ranking officers were called in. The commanders were called in and said, "Hey, will you violate Pars Comitatus and order your soldiers to do X, Y, and Z?" And they said, "Well, no." And those guys were relieved of command and replaced with people who agreed to violate Pars Comitatus. So we had a kiboshing of a huge number of the high-ranking officers who said, hey, politicians, pound sand. No, we will not comply, right? Well, now to where we are in the current era of, to your point, Anthony, like I am very concerned about it because and I'm also concerned about the rank and file because I don't know if you guys have seen this, but there's been like all these enlisted soldiers and some like low-ranking officers who on video have said they can't wait to violate Pars Comitatus if the average civilians, don't behave. And so if that is the case, then I'm not saying that all rank and file are not patriotic individuals. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that there is going to be, if that day comes, it's going to be much more complicated than we like to think, right? We think that the Oath Keepers are going to like rise to the occasion and stop all that stuff. I don't know so much about. I would say veterans, yes. A lot of the active duty right now, I don't know. I have my doubts. Let's just say.
Yeah, because I mean, you're putting your life and your job and stuff on the line. I mean,
all I gotta say is, if you guys saw in 2020 when like the Coast Guard went out and like multiple boats, all these guys went out and they like took down the dude who was paddleboarding in the freaking Pacific Ocean by himself. I mean, it's like, how do you guys look at yourselves in the mirror? If, 20 guys go and take out one dude for paddleboarding, like that's his crime. He paddleboarded against unconstitutional, he was out paddleboarding when an unconstitutional edict was in place that said he's not allowed to paddleboard. I mean, like the level of crime that's going down is insane. But to your point, whoever brought up Australia, right? I don't know if you guys saw some of the insane videos.
Yeah, Australia. He brought up Australia.
There was a guy, an epic video I watched, where this dude who's smoking a cigarette, right? He gets gang tackled by like 5 cops, right? As he's going down, you can see him on the video. He's got the cigarette in his mouth, okay, as they're taking him down. They then, while pinning him to the freaking concrete, they start questioning him about what he was doing outside without his mask on. And he's like, "I'm smoking a cigarette. What do you mean? Why do I not have my mask on?" Anyway, they then proceed to ask him where his ID was. And then while they got him pinned, like his arms are pinned, they start yelling at him of why is he refusing to give them his ID. And he's like, "I can't move. What do you mean I'm not refusing to give you my ID?" So finally he's like, "It's in my pocket. Get it out of my pocket." Anyway, so then fast forward like 45 minutes later, I kid you not, there were 20 police cars, including armored personnel carriers, that have all arrived to deal with the guy who was outside smoking a cigarette. Like,
hey,
that
boys,
was his crime, was smoking a cigarette.
Atheist Junior's in the chat. Sorry.
Oh, is he?
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's in the chat. Yeah.
Well, link is
I
pinned.
didn't pay attention to that.
Time out on this rant here. So Wyatt has also. What's up, Wyatt? Welcome to the stream. How you doing? Did you see the debate, or are you coming in from our current conversation?
I'm just coming in from your current conversation. I know Atheist Junior. I know Kent. Well, I don't know Atheist Junior specifically. I know Kent more, but I've heard of him.
Welcome, buddy. Welcome,
Okay.
welcome.
I wonder if Atheist Junior would be interested in hopping on in this stream.
He probably won't. He'll probably tuck his
Atheist
tail
Junior?
in between his legs and run.
Junior? Or
he just started. It was a long debate after all.
Well,
Right.
I'm going to step out
AJ's
and say
coming before.
about those mirrors. Last week for 4 nights in a row, I asked this guy named Jesus, a guy who I saw in a pizza pub at Wrigley Field wearing a Beatles wig one day. I asked him to show everybody on earth 4 nights in a row with souls, that the scales, the judgment of everyone's eyes be removed, and an angel put their hand under the person's head as they lay in bed and lift their head gently so they could see their real spiritual body, their real mansion, their real soul, what it really looked like. You know, how an angel would be all clean, white, or not necessarily white skinned, but clean and a white robe perhaps. So that would be a spiritual body. And I asked Jesus to show everybody 4 nights in a row your spiritual bodies. It's not written on paper. No one's told me what it looked like. I saw mine. If anybody wants to know,
Oh, he's here.
it'll probably make you puke to hear it.
Yeah.
That's really nice to hear, Leslie.
Yeah. But you know, what I find interesting, and I'm going to shut up and then I'm going to go back to doing whatever I was doing, is very interesting how people don't stop and think, okay, are my actions reasonable? Like, they don't stop, like Mr. Wesley was saying, okay, they don't stop and look in the mirror long enough to say, oh yeah, I am kind of doing this wrong. Yeah, I am going in a wrong direction here, you know. And I wish a society had people that would stop and think for a moment to look in the mirror and say, yeah, let's change this in society, or let's change this about myself, or let's do this, you know. And I'm sorry if I'm sounding like a 19-year-old advocate for change. You know, I'm not in that category or crowd. I'm not, but you know, I kind of am, I guess. I don't know. But I agree with what Mr. Wesley says. You know, let's have a mirror put in society and to say, yeah, you know, let's look at our wrongdoings and our evils, you know?
Yeah, people that think are a little harder to control, though. That's the big problem.
Yeah, that's the, you know, we'll go back to...
Speaking of people who think, there was a whole, well, it was actually a real study, but I find it so apropos and hilarious. They found out that they saved a bunch of men, right? And they found out that lower level testosterone more likely to be liberal. However, as testosterone levels were raised, men were more likely to shift and become go to the right, basically. And irony of ironies,
I'm on the right, so
it's the likelihood of challenge. To your point about thinking for yourself, right? The males specifically, the more testosterone, the more likely they are to challenge the status quo, which I thought was rather interesting. But that's a different topic. Atheist Junior has joined us. What's up, AJ? How you doing? Welcome to stream. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Hanging in there, having a good time, you know, just doing a little conversation. How would you, obviously you were one of the individuals of the debate tonight. How did you feel it went? And just to, you know, I kind of called you out on the level of ad hominems and the fact that I didn't really feel like you made an argument, but so I just want you to know that's where I'm coming from. But go ahead.
Sure. You know, I think it could have gone better for me, but I don't want to make excuses. But the debate was originally scheduled to be like a week and a half ago, and Kent was real sick, so we had to reschedule it. And you know, I was really anticipating the debate being on that day, so I don't know if rescheduling kind of you know, messed up how I planned my sort of strategy. But I will agree that I will admit that the debate did get a little bit pedantic. I think I probably should have. There were times when I took what Kent was saying on its face because he describes things in such a ridiculous way, when it's like, it's more of, I know what he meant, but I want to get him to stop saying things in such an incorrect way, like saying that animals turn into other animals. So I agree with that, but I do think that there was some exchanges where Kent didn't really have a good answer, and I in defense of my opening statement, the whole point of it was that I don't see how I could provide evidence to Kent, and Kent and his fans, no matter what evidence I provide anyway, they're going to hand wave it away and say it's not good enough. So complaining that there wasn't enough evidence in the opening statement, I mean, that was sort of the point, is that Kent won't, like, he didn't even answer my question. I had one question in my opening statement, and Kent completely ignored it. And I did have slides that presented some evidence later on about the scales and feathers. So I don't know if you saw that part, but yeah, it could have gone better, but I still think it was fun, you know.
What was your question? I didn't see the beginning of the debate.
Just what would Kent accept as evidence? What would actually qualify as evidence?
That's a good question.
Yeah. And I saw a lot of people in the chat were kind of complaining that the first part of the debate was really about Kent and the public schools, but Kent was the one that brought that up. So I responded to that, and then we sort of went back and forth on that for a long time, because it is something that really annoys me about Kent, because as you can see, he says that he's not trying to get it taught, but at the same time, he says that he wants it to be taught alongside evolution, you know?
Well, I'm pretty sure and this is okay. Go ahead, Sith Lord. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's just because those are two talking points that I feel like people who are more knowledgeable about Kent Hovind talking points would be able to answer to me, because I honestly don't know the answer to them. The first one being, a lot of times Kent Hovind will, when debating with an atheist, he will bring up the fact that they are an atheist and they have to deny creation. But at the same time, there are lots of Christians who are pretty much okay with evolution. And my point of questioning is, has Kent Hovind ever debated evolutionist Christian? And
Yes.
if so,
Yes, he's
how
debated
did he
inspiring philosophy.
go with the whole argument of you have to deny creation
Hey,
because you are an
sorry,
atheist?
Sith
Like,
Emperor,
what's
your
the argument there?
mic's kind of lagging, I think, on my end. I don't know.
No, it's him.
On me?
Okay.
Oh.
Could I respond to
sure.
that? Okay, so that's a great point you just
Yeah,
made.
sure.
It's an excellent point. And Kent has debated somebody like that before, like they said, inspiring philosophy. It's a really good debate. And Kent didn't just say that inspiring philosophy, I don't know his name off the top of my head, but that
Mike
not
Jones.
Mike, that he said that Mike was not just denying creationism, but outright saying that the Bible was completely wrong and that Jesus was a liar and the Bible was a lie, totally calling his Christianity into question, because Kent says that the only reason that anybody would believe evolution is because they don't want to follow the rules of the Bible. They want to avoid God's rules. That's what Kent says.
And that's true. And like I said, okay, I'm a young earth creationist. I believe in the 6 days of creation. I believe in God's word. I believe in the Bible. I'm not gonna do a round 2 debate, because that's not reasonable, really. The issue is, okay, I mean, the evolutionists, okay, God loves the person, he hates the sin, and that's the thing that a lot of people tend to go overboard with, is that, okay, God hates everybody. No, he doesn't hate everyone. Okay, he doesn't hate anybody at all. He loves everyone. Okay, and some people, I'm not going to speak ill against the man of God, but because that's not right. However, some people get in their mindset, okay, because one person doesn't believe in everything, we should shun them off and outcast them and not let them speak. You know, that's not fair, you know? So,
Well,
I mean, I was watching the debate, but
hang on a second. So in line with the topic at hand in terms of like inspiring philosophy, Kent Hovind, etc. On the flip side, Mike Jones is his name, and many others like him, are very vicious in attacking people like Kent, right? So it's a two-way street, and the same thing applies in the secular world too, right? Like, so I'm assuming some of y'all are aware of the fact that there are several very high-level scientists who, like theoretical physicists and such, cosmologists, who think that the Big Bang Theory, like inflation, Big Bang Theory, and all kind of stuff, is completely false. There's no evidence, and that people that argue for it are completely wrong and just out to lunch.
Namely, the person who actually coined the term Big Bang, Fred Hoyle.
Well, I'm talking. Well, yeah, but I'm talking about the here and now. I'm talking about the modern era. There's some right now that are alive. I've watched some lectures and like topics from. There's actually another channel with the same acronym LPP as mine, and they're like developing cold fusion technology. And if you watch this guy, he's published out the wazoo, H-index of a couple hundred. I mean, he's a very well established guy, tenured out the wazoo, and he just eviscerates other physicists and cosmologists who think that the Big Bang and inflation is valid, right? But somehow in the YouTube universe and the debates that we're talking about right now, it's the fact that there's disagreement by two Christians that therefore this is like, oh my goodness, how could this happen, right? They're attacking each other. It's like, well, that happens all the time, right? This happens inside of politics too. Like there's, I'm pretty sure if you've ever watched a primary season, the candidates inside of the same party like rip each other to shreds in primary season, right? And your opponent's the worst person ever. It's like, but at the end of the day, from the macro view, they're on the same side, at least theoretically, right?
Can I speak to Atheist Junior?
Go ahead.
So, Atheist Junior, you asked the question, what would constitute evidence of evolution that would convince a creationist, such as myself?
Well, that's not okay. That's not exactly what I said.
Okay, what did you ask? Sorry, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Well, not. I didn't say evidence that would convince a creationist. Just what would count as evidence, like what could qualify as evidence.
All right, so I want to address that. The evolutionists have to prove that genetic mutations accumulating over time via natural selection can explain all biodiversity. So what evidence did you present today that proves that that is a possibility?
We have to prove that? Why is that?
Because that's the natural selection acting upon genetic mutations is the only mechanism. That is evolution. There's nothing else. So that's what you have to prove. Did you prove that?
That's not true.
You have to prove what he's asking, AJ, is okay, does your side have every bit the evidence? Like, okay, is evolution 100% true? That's basically what you have to answer, and you have to explain that answer.
Yeah, but I'm not even saying like what is the complete evidence. I'm just saying what even as one piece of evidence could possibly count.
Well, evolution
none, really.
occurs.
None. The answer is none.
I think if you all could prove that genetic mutations accumulating over time could lead from a single-celled organism, the first common ancestor, to everything that exists today, that's what would prove evolution. So you have to prove that genetic mutations can create new proteins and new body systems and new cell types. All this stuff about homology and all this, I just don't think it's and squirrels deviating, like one squirrel giving birth to a slightly different, that's old school. That's like 1800s evolution. You all have to prove the genetics add up over time. Do you think you did that today?
Can you restate your question again? So genetics add up to what? That prove that genetics explain the biodiversity of the animal kingdom? Is that what you're saying?
You have to prove that genetic mutations being acted upon by natural selection explain all biodiversity. So a type of evidence would be proving that mutations could accumulate, giving rise to new genetic information, functional genetic information. If you just go with, well, do you think you provided an evidence that shows that, or do you think you could?
Well, we didn't really get into the genetics, but scientists have seen that genetics leads to new species. Speciation has been observed, and it's from these mutations. It's from different, every animal gives birth to an animal that's not its exact clone. So the animal is going to be slightly different. The nucleotide sequence is going to be different because of those mutations, and it's going to cause changes. And those small changes eventually are going to lead to a different species, like I talked about with the 2 squirrel populations. That's because of mutations.
Okay, well, the problem is you have, let's say God created squirrels 6,000 years ago. No one's denying that the existing genetic material could be corrupted over time. Like, let's say you have 1 squirrel or 2 squirrels that reproduce, and they create another line of more lines of squirrels. Some lines of squirrels are going to be the same. Some are going to be different. Over time, the genetic, what will happen is there'll be a breakdown of genetic information. And this could lead to reproductive separation. But nothing's being generated. So when atheists give this example, what they don't realize is destruction of genetic information or modification of existing genetic information is possible. And this can lead to speciation, but you have to prove that new adaptations can evolve. So new functional information. Do you understand? I know that was a lot. Do you agree with me or disagree?
Well, I mean, speciation is what macroevolution is defined as. So my definition of evolution was microevolution, which is just those small changes within a species, and macroevolution is when eventually you get new species that cannot interbreed with the previous population. And that's really all evolution is. Getting into structures is really not necessary, although I do think that these changes and genetic mutations, not in one mutation, but over maybe a long period of time, can eventually lead to new structures. But that's what evolution is. So speciation and microevolution,
What?
that's what
Here's the
evolution is.
problem. You say micro. This is something that evolutionists say a lot. Microevolution leads to macroevolution. There's a lot of scientific evidence that shows that that's not true.
Where? Yeah. Where is the evidence?
There are all dog breeds evolved from wolves. So there's clearly a wide range of diversity possible within a species. But they'll never go far enough away from the wolf prototype to be considered another kind of animal, because there are genetic limitations to that. This is.
May I play devil's advocate and try to make like some sort of bridge between you guys and AJ?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I believe most of us are familiar with cows, like the most common variety of cows in the United States being the Tarim cattle, also called the humpless cattle. But in India and other places, they have the Zebuin cattle, which are the cattle, the cows that have a hump. And we all agree that they are the same kind of animal. They are cows. They can breed with each other and they can produce fertile offspring. Am I correct? We all agree on that scenario.
Yeah.
And we can agree that the American bison is also able to breed with the domestic cattle, both Zebuin and Taurine. So we get the idea that the bison is also in the same kind of animal as those cows. Correct? We all agree on here?
I don't know that as a fact, but I'll just assume you're correct.
No. You can actually go to actually Wikipedia or anything else. And
Personally, I disagree. I disagree. I'm not gonna, Wikipedia is not a great valid source because people can go in and change it.
Okay, I'm apologizing. There are several sources on what's called beefalo. It's the hybrid between a cow and a bison. And there are pictures, there are studies, there are several things on them, and they are here and there and they pop up everywhere. And so, with that said, we would agree that the bison and the domestic cattle are the same kind of animal. like they can interbreed and produce fertile offspring. Correct?
All right.
Okay, we all agree in here. The problem is, in India, they breed the water buffalo. And they also exported the water buffalo to the Mediterranean and to Brazil. And in those places, they have tried with both naturally and artificially to breed the water buffalo with the domestic cattle. It's impossible. They are non-compatible. They don't produce neither naturally nor via artificial fertilization an offspring. The two sexual cells don't recognize each other, so there is no hybrid to be made. So by that logic, assuming that the definition of a kind is what brings forth, we will be inclined to identify that the cows and the bison are from a different kind than the water buffalo.
Well, this is kind of like my example with the squirrels.
Yeah, but like I'm walking with this so I can
Right.
see we are all in the same page.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I
And
feel
so
like I'm a dog in a park and there's like all these squirrels and I'm gonna go chase one of them. Sorry.
If you want my personal opinion, okay, and I know I may be off wherever I may be, but okay, like I said, I believe in the Lord. I have faith in God, and that's not going to be changing. Okay,
okay.
and my point of view, okay, is that God created animals that He wanted to create. Okay, sin came in, destroyed it, ruined it, took it out. Okay, destroyed a lot of things. Okay. Actually, all of creation really was fallen because of sin. So that's why we have a lot of odd things. We see a lot of mutations. We see a lot of odd things. But it's not God's fault. It's our fault because we sinned and we allow the fall to happen. But God created some incredible things for all of us to look at, from the dinosaurs to what we see today. I mean, we as man can create some things, but we cannot create things that God can. Okay, God can create multiple universes with just a single lift of His finger, or just a voice from His word. You know.
Well, can I address you, Armored? I agree with a lot of what you said tonight, but I just think that the claim that the young Earth is not something that's empirically verifiable. I think evolution can be disproven on empirical grounds as opposed to presuppositional religious position. I
agree with that. Okay, I agree. Okay, now the questions that mainly arise from these two beliefs is who is correct, who's ultimately correct, is the question that must be answered. Who is ultimately correct? Okay. And where can we? Okay, and I want to ask Atheist Junior if I can. Okay, where is your evidence? I mean, that was the topic of the debate. Where is the evidence? Can you show at least a little bit, or talk about the evidence, or where is your evidence? Where's your side of it?
You guys, 2 healed teeth in your mouth and free pizzas 3 days in a row. That's pretty good evidence for the Jesus is God for me. What's your deal?
So you're saying the same false dichotomy that Kent does. You're acting like the only positions are either that creationism happened or that evolution happened. But like I think Sith Emperor said, there are plenty of Christians who are evolutionists too.
I'm not. Mm-mm.
Well, they exist.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, and now the bottom line is, okay, God still loves all. Okay, and that's my point of view. You can agree or disagree. Okay, it's whatever. Okay, I love you. Okay, you're a human. I'm a human. Okay, we just believe differently. Okay, Jesus sat with publicans and sinners. Okay, there was no because he loved them. Okay, but did he become them? No. And I agree. I'm not a follower of Kent Hovind. I'm not. Okay. I agree with some things. Okay, now listen to me careful. I say some things, not all things, some. Okay. He's a great teacher. However, I don't believe a lot of things he says. So don't put me in that same category as all the Kent Hovindites. Okay, don't put me in that category. Okay. I'm a Christian. I believe in God as my foundational faith. Okay, the other side of the fence is either atheism. There's no middle ground. There's no such thing as a middle ground. Okay, these evolutionist creationists. Okay, that's basically a middle ground. Okay, Jesus said if you cannot serve two masters, if you try to ride the fence, I'm going to spew you out of my mouth as lukewarm milk. So there is essentially no middle ground to this whole this war. Okay, now we can be friends and we can grow up and say, you know what, you believe differently, I believe differently. Okay, let's try to get along at least where we can be and try to change, try to make good for people. Okay, and that's what I believe. I mean, you can believe differently if you like.
What's up, Danny? Welcome to the stream. How was your interview with Oppie?
Oh, it was good. Very chill guy. I mean, I love that guy.
How's it going, Danny?
So, Danny, I have seen I've been getting notifications, an extraordinary amount of notifications from Clubhouse that Danny is now speaking. So I think that you might be neglecting your continuous education as a teacher and spending way too much time on Clubhouse.
Well, I'm not teaching right now.
Well, I know it's summertime, but don't teachers have to get continuing education every year?
No, we don't. But
I can't hear Danny.
I'm neglecting though. So I mean, it's not like you're wrong, but it's one of the things I'm not neglecting though is teaching.
No, I'm messing with you, Danny. I'm joking on you, but
yeah,
no, you have been getting rather addicted to Clubhouse. I think I'm staging a mild intervention to the amount of time I see you.
I think I've always been addicted to these type of rooms, So I don't think it's something new. It's just where I am,
Well, a new venue of addiction.
Can you all hear
exactly.
me? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Who was talking?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, you're coming in loud and clear.
Well, what the person who was talking before Danny came in was saying, I think Wyatt or Armored Bear.
Yeah, I was speaking. Yeah.
So while these Christians who are evolutionists, they do exist, I actually agree with what you're saying, because the way I read the Bible, I don't think that there is a way to compromise, because if you say that you think evolution is true, even if you think that God did it, Genesis, I think, is contradicted by the notion that man could have evolved or had common ancestry with Lucy, with ape-like animals, because in Genesis, the humans are formed looking like modern-day humans, right in the first chapter. So right there is, I think, a conflict that can't really be resolved.
Well, I mean, it's okay. I mean, now, hold on, let me back up. Okay. The thing is, okay, sorry, my brain just did 300 dyslexia moments at one time. I'm sorry. Like I said, I'm brand new to all this. But, okay, the thing is, okay, as Jesus said, okay, you need to love people no matter what. Okay, and to put it in my basic terms, okay, I don't agree with what you believe. Okay, but guess what? You're a human just like me. Okay, and I'm not going to believe in what you believe. Okay, you can believe whatever you want. That's fine. You can believe that you're some unicorn that lives in Jupiter. Okay, go for it. Okay, but guess what? You're still a human. Okay, and Lucy. Okay, let's get on that for a moment. Okay, Lucy was actually created from several mannequins. Okay, it was created literally from man's attempt to try and put the missing link. Okay, there is no such thing as a missing link. Okay, Lucy's made up, no matter what you want to believe it. Okay, I've literally seen the photos. I've done a lot of research on it on my side of the fence. Okay. I looked at your side of the fence. It don't even match up at all. It don't even make any sense. Okay.
Well, if I may chime in here, the whole concept of a missing link is kind of outdated, to be honest.
Lucy was made from mannequins.
Regardless, if I just may just wrap up, because
Sure.
I just wanted to leave because it's getting late and I need to work tomorrow. I just wanted to get this thing with Armored Beast in particular, because I'm a Christian that follows generally speaking, the evangelical doctrine associated generally with Billy Graham and Wheaton College. And the major problem is, I really, in our theology, we get a lot of issue with the division between the creation doctrine and the evolution dogma. Like, we don't say you have to believe in one of those two to be saved, to be a true Christian. And the problem with the situation as it is nowadays is that a lot of Christians have brought this kind of secular debate into religion and have kind of, I won't say distorted, but at least created some sort of blurriness. Because if a person is a Christian, they believe in Jesus as their savior and do all the basic Christian stuff. They believe in loving your enemies and forgiving those who have wronged you, and all of this stuff, and like the whole idea of a family and stuff that we all are all very familiar with. It doesn't really matter if you believe if evolution is true or if creation is true, as isn't literally, because the hereafter is already guaranteed and your duty is to a community. That being said, I don't really see. I understand where Atheist Junior is coming from, and also you, Armored. But at the same time, it feels weird to create a dichotomy between evolution and creation when theologically.
Well, unfortunately, there is, and the reason. Okay, hold on. The reason why there is, okay, is because, okay, and here's where my personal belief comes in, okay, and here's where the foundational comes in, okay. As we as Christians must understand, God created, God did, God said. That's it. The atheist, okay, and the evolutionist on their side of the fence want to say, well, we created ourselves. We came from nothing but dirt. We came from nothing but just chance. Okay. Okay, what sounds more reasonable? Chance or faith?
Well, I don't see why there wouldn't be.
But that's the thing. I'm not asking anyone to choose one of the two. Like, evolution can still happen with the guidance of God.
How?
That's the whole
Explain.
issue.
Explain. How? Wait.
Hang on. So
I
Yeah.
have to explain.
I had to bite my tongue because that went right
created
over my
the
head. I'm
world.
sorry.
God just spoke and did it. I don't understand the ways of God, and neither should I. That's not what I'm trying to do. Like, explain to me how God created the world. He said, "Let it be light," and so it happened. I have no idea what else you want me to explain from it.
Is that evolution attempts to totally erase the necessity of God. So when you try to provide a materialistic explanation, what they're trying to do is say, yeah, you can believe in God, but there's no reason to believe that. So why would you? So it isn't important.
And that's the thing that I don't understand from people who want to ride middle ground or who believe in opposite of us. Okay, the question is that we have to ask you guys in return: why would you believe in something so stupid? Okay, our side is true. Okay, because we know it's true. We can prove it.
Okay. Hang on. Okay, so number one, I think the Emperor made a good point from a salvific perspective, which is what the point he was making is, if you believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, that he died for your sins, you repent, ask for forgiveness, accept salvation, then you are granted eternal life, you're justified in the eyes of God, so on and so forth. Like, that is root doctrinal positions. From a salvific perspective, there's nothing from a salvific perspective that whether or not you're a theistic evolutionist or a creationist has no bearing in, at least for me, from a salvific perspective. Now we can look at it from are there ramifications from the likelihood of being able to reach a atheist, right? So if it's an atheist who one of their primary defenses of their worldview is that because evolution is true, therefore, and we're somehow going to figure out abiogenesis, therefore, God is definitely not needed for them to exist. And on the flip side, you have somebody who's like, well, I think evolution is true, but God exists, right? Now that's a different argument of like, well, why are you going to this position? Now, on the flip side, if you're looking at
middle
it
ground.
Well, from your frame of reference, right? So
yeah, but that doesn't. That's where we are both agreeing.
Well, what about it?
Change you being saved.
What about just a pure truth standpoint? What's true? Did people evolve from prior organisms over a long period, or did God? I mean, one of them's true. They can't both be true, I think, is an important point to understand.
Yes.
But what Atheist Jr. is trying to say is that it's not like if evolution is false that like we can know whether theism is true or not. Right? It's fine to have a discussion about whether evolution is true or not, but it doesn't really have as much of an impact as people think on whether God exists.
I disagree. I think the foundation of atheism is materialist evolutionary theory. If evolution isn't true,
that's statistically.
Okay, whoa. Okay.
Hey, real quick before we continue on, AJ, George Bond asked a question. Do you have the title of the paper that you were referring to in the debate for Scales to Feathers?
I will. I'm looking for the link in my slides right now, so I will. I'll put that in the comments or the private chat.
Okay, appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay, continue, guys.
All right. So here's the issue. Okay. What the issue is, there is no such thing. Okay, is there a middle ground or is there no middle ground? Jesus said there is no such thing as a middle ground. Either you love me or you don't love me.
Yeah,
okay, I don't understand. Okay, if you want my point, okay, hold on, real quick, hold on. Sith Emperor, okay, if you want me to be honest, I was once in your shoes. I said once, okay. I had a man come up to me. He said, "Why do you believe in evolutionary creationists?" And I said, "Well, because I've been taught that it exists." Okay, and he said, "Explain to me how." And I couldn't, because it's impossible. How can God use evolution? He can't. Because that's something that
if you don't
Wait,
know,
you just created a whole other thing. Like now you're putting limitations in the power of God, and that's a whole other issue that.
But isn't that what you're trying to say? Isn't that what you've been saying? Is that?
No, that's not what I was saying.
Yeah, he wasn't saying that at all.
Okay, my bad. Okay,
my
bad.
Isn't a matter of salvific terms. You can believe either in your secular perspective, and your salvation isn't dependent on either. There are Muslim creationists who will defend till their teeth, and you can go to Muslim websites like Seeker's Guidance and Islam Q&A and other places. They will all say that evolution is a lie, that evolution is impossible, it's a fabrication of the atheists, blah, 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 blah. They are not going to be saved. They believe in one God creator. They are not going to be saved. And at the same time, you have a Christian who believes in evolution, who believes that God somehow guided the process of evolution, of natural selection, and that's how.
But that's middle ground.
And
that's not true.
Believes, and the same is for the Muslims. What is the difference? The difference is
we serve. The difference is we serve the one true God. They believe in some absolute magic man came in and says, "I am Allah, now believe me or die." Okay,
No, that's not
our
what
Lord and Savior
Muslims
Jesus
believe
Christ. No,
at
listen,
all.
our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Okay, he said, "Believe in me or don't." That's he didn't make any regulations. The only regulations you will see is on Judgment Day.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Only
believe me or
regulations.
believe me or you'll go to hell.
You just proved my point. Congratulations. That's what I'm saying. Like you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. You accept that He died for your sins, and you're saved. There is no evolution. There is no creation. Period. That's all I'm saying, and that's the whole thing. The
So
matter
wait,
is
okay, whoa,
being
back
saved.
up. Did you say there's no evolution? There's no creation?
No, there's believing in either of those in that scenario isn't a point of contention.
Yeah, there's an open question. If someone believes that Jesus is Lord and all of what you're saying, there's an open question about whether they're a young Earth creationist, whether they're an old Earth creationist, whether they're they accept evolution. You can't know from just the fact that they believe in Jesus and whatever you said, because none of that entails any of those other views.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think atheism. I agree with what Sith is saying and Danny said. The problem is atheists need evolution.
That's just not true.
Their ideology cannot exist without evolution.
Wait, well, are you gonna? You should support that though,
because you all have to explain how what we observe in modern biology is possible from getting from a no life forms whatsoever to where we are today via purely materialistic mechanisms. If you all don't have that, your worldview is
atheism. One of your first false assumption is that atheism presupposes materialism, because it doesn't. There are a lot of non-naturalist atheists. I'm one of them, right? But the second thing is that it's just what you're saying is a non sequitur, right? It doesn't follow from the fact that we have to explain or we don't know how we got from molecules to man, that therefore we're committed to evolutionary biology.
All right, let me try to. Can I try to reframe here? For atheism to be true, modern living creatures have to have gotten where we are from a point in history where there was no life, and no intelligent being could have done that. So you have to have a purely materialistic mechanism by which you can go from no life in the beginning to where we are today. So Darwin, his theory provided that. There's nothing else. If evolution is false, materialistic evolution, atheism is also false. I don't see any other way we can look at it.
I didn't really follow what you were saying. So you're saying that we're committed to evolutionary biology because something about light, there not being light. Can you go premise by premise?
So the atheist.
He said life, not light, but
for your worldview to make sense of what we observe, there has to be a mechanism by which you go from no living beings to where we are today, and no intelligent input anywhere along the way. It's purely
when you say mechanism, do you mean anything more than an explanation? Because there could be an explanation, but no mechanism.
Here's what I mean. All you have is the forces of nature and atoms. Nothing else.
That's not even true, right? Atheism isn't committed to just saying that there's those natural, that there's just natural causation.
What else? Tell me what else they have then.
My claim is that it doesn't atheism doesn't logically entail that that's the only form of causality. That's my claim.
Bro, what?
But why do you have to prove that? First of all, you're conflating abiogenesis and evolution. But why is it that for atheism to be true, you have to be able to prove that?
Because this is what we observe. We have living things, and atheists, to explain that, atheism also includes.
Suppose we don't have an explanation. That's not a problem on atheism, right? Like if we don't know how life emerged or how we got here, it will never follow that therefore atheism is false.
You can say this is my point. If evolution is proven false, atheism dies.
Why?
That's not. Yeah, but I don't think you can support that.
That's not
Why?
supported in history as well.
Here's why. Because atheists need to be able to get from a point where on Earth there's no life to where we are now, which is
why? Why would I accept that? Why would anyone accept that?
Because atheists have to assume that at some point on Earth's history there was no life, and given that, they have to explain how we got from that state.
Why? Look, you're just repeating yourself for the third time. For atheism to be tenable as a coherent position, we don't need to explain how life emerged from non-life.
Well, now hold on a second, Danny. He didn't quite repeat himself. He said that atheists have to assume that at one point there was no life on Earth.
Then he said, right after he said that, he said, then we need to explain, which is just repeating their claim. Right after, you're right.
You need to. I mean, how? Okay. Explain. You need to, show evidence.
Well, here's Danny. Danny, here's the problem. You would acknowledge we observe living things today, right?
Yeah.
And at some point in Earth's history, according to atheism, there was no living thing, not even a single-celled organism, right?
Atheism doesn't even imply that. There could be an infinite regress of life. I mean, but I can grant it for sake of argument that there was a point in which there was no life.
Okay, so you're suggesting that the Earth has existed for all eternity into the eternal past.
No, I never said that. I'm just saying. Well, first of all, there could be alien life from different. I mean, look, the point is that I don't believe this, but atheism does not entail that life begins at a certain point. There's nothing about there is no God to life began at some point, right? That's a different fact.
Just to interrupt.
So, Danny, are you suggesting that atheism does not necessitate at some point in the line a non-intelligent agent being the root cause?
No, that's going to have to be independently known or falsified. Right? Just from being an atheist, that's to say, if you believe that there's an infinite regress of living organisms and you believe that there's no God, there's no contradiction.
Okay, there are certain logical implications of believing there is no God. One of them...
Not really. No, there's very little that's entailed by that.
Yeah, those are your assumptions. Those aren't conclusions. I'd like to hear your definition of atheism.
He said, he just said the denial of God, the existence of God. And I'm just saying there's not much that comes with that. We just deny God.
Yeah.
And
if that's it,
there's a whole
that's that's your answer, okay?
No,
there's no middle ground. There's no I believe, okay, it's either one or the other. There's either option A or option B. There's no option C. There's no unsure. Okay.
I don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking? I don't know what
Do you not know what an agnostic is?
Let's say agnosticism is false.
Issue, guys.
We're just kind of we're playing with the fact that God does not exist. All I'm trying to say is that the proposition God does not exist does not contradict.
All right.
Statement that life is there's always been.
Would you agree with the following statement? If God does not exist, then what we currently observe as reality has to be explained in that light.
I don't understand the conditional.
Basically, what we observe today, if atheism is true, what we observe today has to be completely explainable in terms of there not being a God.
That's fine. I think we're committed to that.
I mean, I think it is.
Okay, so logically, the universe either had to create itself or always exist. That's one of the logical implications of that.
Yeah, there is a universe that either began or did not begin.
Okay, science is telling us that it began at the Big Bang. Do you reject that?
I'm fine with that. That seems reasonable to believe.
Okay, so you have to get from the Big Bang, which is a giant explosion with no life, to a solar system that contains our sun and Earth, to life forming on that Earth, to that first living organism diversifying to all life. That's what atheism needs.
Atheism is going to say if there's an explanation for all of this stuff, it won't involve a divine being. That's all we're committed to.
Okay.
Can I make a few points here?
Go ahead.
I think one of the big crosstalks we're having here is Danny is trying to sit there and have the purest definition of atheist, which means that they don't believe in God. It doesn't necessarily fall on creation or where we came from. They could have it as evolution. They could have it as just perpetually ongoing life, that everything is as it is now and always has been.
No, I'm just saying I believe that life began, right? I think I have that belief. I'm just saying that I don't know that because I'm an atheist.
Right, but I'm saying as an atheist, that's not necessary for you to be an atheist.
Right.
You
If I found
may
out
believe
that
it.
if for some reason we got the technology where we found out there's always been life, I'm like,
Now,
okay.
let me ask you a question, Danny. If it could be proven that life could not have formed by any materialistic means, would that not disprove atheism?
Well, that still leaves room for random events. So are you ruling that out too?
I don't think it would.
Random events?
Yeah, because random events are unexplained.
Well, you have to understand, random events is just materialistic, something happening in the material universe.
If it's random, it has no explanation, so it's not going to have a materialistic explanation.
Okay, well then later on it can be explained.
Sorry, what?
Later on it could be explained.
But then it's not random. Random is just, it doesn't have an explanation. It's a brute contingent fact.
Danny, okay, you have to work with the laws of the universe and the material world.
That's not entailed by atheism. Once again, there's no inference there. There are a lot of atheists. About half of atheists are, maybe around 60% actually, are naturalists. 30% of them are not naturalist, right? So we're not I mean, it's just to say that atheism doesn't entail.
Unfortunately, okay, it's getting to the point where I'm noticing, okay, I don't know if there could be middle ground for reasoning at this point. Because, I mean, one person is trying to say, okay, you're going off on like 4 different miles of explanations. Just give a single explanation as to what you believe instead of 4 different miles of running around,
Just so I can finish up some of my points and then I'll hop out to bed. There is a really interesting theological debate that happened during the Middle Ages, and I believe it would wrap up things really nice on my end. The experience basically is, I have a piece of paper and I have a lighter. I will turn the lighter on and put it under the paper. I'll not do this right here for obvious reasons. The explanation is, God controls the universe and he controls everything. Nothing happens in the universe without God knowing or being responsible for. We all agree with that from our basic Christian perspective, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I don't think God is necessarily responsible for every single thing that happens, but he does know.
There goes the thing. If I turn on the lighter and the piece of paper catches on fire.
Can you just get to your explanation?
I'm sorry.
No, sorry. No, oh, I'm sorry. My phone is super laggy.
No,
I'm sorry. Okay. My bad, brother. My bad.
Okay.
Keep going.
And
my bad.
Basically, is God actively making the paper catch fire? And if God, for some reason, stops actively making the paper catch fire, I can toy with the lighter as much as I want under the paper will never catch on fire. Or God created laws that regulate the universe, and those laws guarantee that whenever I put a lighter turned on under a piece of paper, the piece of paper will catch fire. Those are the 2 options of the explanation of what happens if a lighter is put under a piece of paper.
I would lean toward option 2, but I don't think it's a very good analogy for evolution.
Yeah. Okay, my bad. What I was trying to say earlier, I was trying to say, yeah, I'm listening to your example. I'm sorry.
No, I'm not saying it's a good analogy. I'm
My
saying
phone
is
literally lagged to say, explain your explanation now. I'm sorry. Sorry. That was my bad on my part. My phone
okay,
was
I'm sorry.
lagging pretty bad.
It's basically that's the whole idea. Like,
I follow what you're saying.
I understand that it's a really poor analogy for evolution.
Well, okay.
Yeah, all that I'm saying is it's possible to justify actions in the world and have different explanations as why and how God acts behind it and how it happens in connection with God. That's all that I'm saying. Like I know that's a poor analogy, and I know this has its limitations. That's all that I'm trying to do.
I didn't quite.
It doesn't matter.
I didn't
if you
quite
believe,
get it. I didn't get.
Okay,
I didn't
then
quite
again-
get it. It's kind of like the book of Ecclesiastes, where it's man's wisdom underneath the sun. I mean, it's very weird how you explained it, but I guess I get the gist of it. But still,
I
I mean,
understood
God
perfectly
created
what you were
all things. He created laws. He created man. He created physics. He created math. He created every bit that we can even think of. He created it. Okay, there's no sense of we magically found it just randomly. God, I believe personally, this is just my opinion. You can agree or disagree with it. That's fine. Go for it. I believe God allows us to explore different things up to a limitation so that people don't sit there and say, oh, okay, well, we found it. We did this. Evolution did this. Some magical thing did. Okay. I think personally, God allows us to go so far with his creation that we have to just stop and say, you know what? This takes a lot of faith to believe. It does. And, when one night I was out here looking at the stars because I have no light out here where I live. So you can just see the stars, look straight up and see it. I was thinking, this is such incredible beauty. This did not have to happen by chance. This could not have happened by chance. There's no way. The complexity of how the universe is made takes incredible faith to believe.
Okay, but that's not that I'm arguing. All I'm arguing is I don't need to recognize.
Sorry, what'd you say? Believe? I'm sorry. What'd you say, man?
Let's all go back to the example of the lighter and the piece of paper. I can breaking down a piece of paper burning into all the chemical formulas, into all the physical components, into everything that it happens with a lighter turning a piece of paper on fire. And yet I can still say, look how amazing God is. You understand that those are different things. When
Yes,
I break it,
I completely, I follow you completely. I agree with everything.
When
I agree
I
with what
go
you're
to
saying.
the whole event of the chemicals, the physics, and everything else, this is the quotation marks scientific explanation that doesn't go against God.
Wait, I still wanted to talk to Danny. Where'd he go?
Danny just left.
He left.
Yeah, and I'm gonna
Danny
follow him.
Danny done just yeeted out of the conversation.
Could I have a moment to speak to address this and everything? Because I think things have just been kind of spinning in a circle here and whatnot.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it sounds like the biggest thing that you're trying to address is that it doesn't matter whether it's evolution or it's creation as far as salvation. If you're saved, then you're saved,
So long
and it
as
doesn't
God
matter
is
which
in the
one.
equation, yes, it doesn't matter.
Okay, and I agree with you as far as salvation, like LPP was saying earlier. The problem is that for those that aren't saved, evolution is a stumbling block to becoming saved because they look at it and say, well, if this part of the Bible isn't true, why is the other part?
I know.
That is the danger.
I can see that.
Well, but here's the thing that has to be remembered too is like because I agree with the point you just made. However, I think a lot of that stems from the lack of understanding of the average individual of what would have to be accomplished in order for evolution to be true.
Oh yeah.
And so I agree with what you're saying, Stephen, in terms of it being a stumbling block for a lot of folks. And on the flip side, it's like if evolution is actually pre-programmed on the cosmic level, right? Which is what a lot of the theistic evolutionists argue, right? Like that it was pre-programmed into the literal fabric of the universe, right? That self-assembly of molecules can occur and, you know, ultimately result in cognition and, you know, those different things. Like, if that is true, I don't agree with that, but if that is true, then that would be an astronomical accomplishment on the side of God to have the control of all of the different random variables that have to come into play, which are innumerable, in order to accomplish this end outcome. It would have to be a cosmic divine act, in my opinion. Given what we're now knowing, that would have to be like that. That's, in my opinion, that's where we're at. Like, so I was listening to a lecture the other day from a bunch of secular scientists, right? And one of the it's on origin of life research, and one of the things they were discussing was the necessity of information that must exceed the amount that must exist preceding the formation of certain levels of complexity. So, like, if, easy math purposes, let's say if something is more complicated than a level 15 object, then in order for that to form, you must have preceding information, and they can be enacted, functional information that can be enacted in order to form this complex object. Things less than that could form themselves randomly, right? And they're now being able to quantify where that barrier is. So if that barrier is true, they're talking about, and this is published research, by the way, if that is true, then you're running into some serious problems from a how the heck does life exist without a preceding intelligent agent? Because pretty much everything that is required for life to exist and recognized is needed for life to exist is way beyond the random barrier. And so, anyway, long story short, I'm going with all this is from the macro view in the atheist Christian discussion, atheist discussion, whether or not the vast majority of atheists will admit it, they are dependent upon evolution being true in order to substantiate their worldview. They don't like to admit it, but they must. Because if that's not the case, and you do, because they, like Danny was talking about, like, well, just because I don't have to believe in evolution in order for me to be an atheist, right? Well, it's like, okay, well, if you actually want to rationally address your existence, and then you're claiming that you don't need a preceding intelligent agent, then you must explain all the things that would be indicative of requiring an intelligent agent to exist preceding the formation of what is necessary for you to exist. And
or they could
otherwise,
just ignore the question.
Right. Otherwise, you're in a hand waving, like, well, I'm just going to ignore that. Well, and one of the ways Danny does it is he claims that you don't have to have grounding to your positions.
But here's the issue. I am familiar with this argument, but the problem is it eliminates atheism out of the equation, but it doesn't eliminate the deism. So a person can just believe there is a God, and lo and behold, they become Muslim, because the Muslims answer that question really well. They have their own God. So where are we? Like, that's what I'm saying.
I would agree with you completely that just addressing that question is not necessarily a answer to whether or not the Christian God is true. But one of the things in a lot of the debates I've been in, the atheists want to jump directly to, well, I don't believe any gods exist, but you need to prove to me that your God exists, right? And it's like, well, hang on. First, let's create the foundation as to whether or not it is the rational conclusion that it is necessary for either naturalism is true and materialism, it is correct, or it's not correct, right? If there's always going to be a naturalistic explanation for everything, then how would I possibly ever convince you that or substantiate my position that God must exist? So first, we have to address, in my opinion, especially in the modern era, you have to address that, because people are so brainwashed into materialism and physicalism and all the different terms that we use for it, that they can just ignore all the philosophical arguments because materialism is true, and that's all that matters. And people become brainwashed into like the religion of science, and the only thing that matters is science, and and I can ignore everything other than quote unquote science, which in reality is, oh wait, I don't actually understand the science. I don't know what the hell. I don't know what you're actually talking about. But the consensus is, quote unquote, consensus says that we exist without the necessity of an intelligent agent. So therefore, I can dismiss every argument you make about the evidence for God's existence. And,
okay, can I address something else before we get too far off the topic?
Yeah, and then I'm gonna hop to bed.
Okay. Now, one of the things that's been brought up is that could God sit there and set all the laws and let it go, and evolution formed everything, and it proceeded naturally from that point on due to the way he set everything up? Could God have done that? Yes, God could have done that. But the problem is God told us how he did it. So if we therefore believe something that God did not tell us, we are calling God a liar. And God can't lie. So therefore we either have to accept what he said, or if he's lying, we have no reason to believe any of it.
I agree with that.
The issue is very polarizing view, but then again, I don't think this is a matter of salvation. Like, it's not a topic.
No, it's not a matter of salvation.
Yeah.
I agree with you with that.
That's the thing.
The problem is it blocks people or turns people from salvation if they believe part of the Bible is a lie. Why should they believe the other part is absolute truth?
And that's where our faith and belief and our wisdom and our knowledge of God's word needs to come in and say, look, this is how we know it exists. Okay. So,
yeah,
I mean, the only thing. Sorry, go ahead. My bad.
It's just I'm just trying to wrap things up. Like, yeah, but like then again, the whole issue, as I said, yes, I understand that this is a topic that's a lot of quotation nowadays in the United States. Basically, evolution versus creation has been a matter of saving people, keeping people in the faith, or losing them. Like, lots of people, they leave the Christian faith because they learn about evolution in the school, and they see that because evolution is true, the Bible is a lie, and yada yada yada. But at the core level, that's the whole thing. Like, I understand there is this complicated situation we are in, but I don't think that's the core level of issue. I still go with the idea that it is possible to coexist with evolution, because there are bigger fish that we sometimes let go of because of our obsession with disproving evolution. That's my
quick question. What do you mean by bigger? Quick question, and I don't mean to keep you here because I know you're tired. What do you mean by bigger fish, though?
In bigger fish, I would say Marxism is a way bigger fish than evolution.
Well, I agree with that, and a lot of what you said I kind of agree with. Now that, however, I'm kind of in the middle about, because I mean, here's the thing. Okay, here's the thing. So isn't sin the primary issue with this whole thing? Okay. Isn't Marxism derived from sin? Isn't it? Is evolution derived from sin? I mean, the whole point is, okay, sin. There's either sin, or it's very strange. I mean, I get my brain. Like I said, I have really bad dyslexia. I'm sorry. It's very late over here on that.
I know you're trying to leave, but one of the big problems we've been talking about how it's a stumbling block for people. Not only is it a stumbling block, but the people who promote evolution, their theory can be demonstrated as wrong as they present it, and they refuse to acknowledge that.
Yeah, that's true.
They need to recognize their theory is mathematically. You'll never hear in a high school biology course the mathematics behind evolution, because people would realize it's false. So it is used as a tool to attack faith in God, and they know it, and that's why it's dangerous. because
It's
it's been refuted, and they refuse to acknowledge it.
Yep.
And that's how you know they're not telling the truth.
Yeah, and you know what's even scarier, okay, is that, okay, they use platforms like these, and they're everywhere, okay? You literally type in, okay, we were talking about this earlier, okay? You type into Google, okay, immediately comes up is, oh yeah, this is what evolution is, and they give you this big, long definition, okay, that literally makes no sense. It has 20 different contradictions in them, okay? And it's destroying people's belief because they use such massive terminology words to make the most dumbest thing, you know? It's very strange and very dumb. And I know for a fact I have several friends who go to public school, and I can bring them on here if I can try. They probably won't be as stupid as me. But okay, they can literally tell you teachers are, and it's not just in public school, it's also in college, okay? But the public school teachers, a lot of them, okay, especially here where I live, are saying that evolution is the only way. Believe it, or you're gonna be mocked to death.
But yeah, let me butt in. Sid, I know you're trying to leave, but here's the problem. I understand your point about you can believe evolution, or you know, it's possible to believe in God, and the problem is this: the theory of evolution that they've presented is definitely wrong, but they lie and say that it's the foundation of modern science. That's the arguments they use, the mechanisms they use to demonstrate how life evolved from a single-celled organism are demonstrably wrong, mathematically provably wrong, and they don't say that.
And there is the other problem, that is, creation isn't the foundation of modern science. So then begs the question, what is the foundation of modern science? And it's an answer that very few people in those debates. I'm not a scientist, I'm actually a historian, so it's not my field of research, not something that I personally deal with. So I have no idea what is the foundational stone of science. But if I'm going to believe the things that creationists tell doesn't align precisely with what modern science is going on, and the same with the evolutionists. So where is it? Who has the foundational stone?
Yeah, but Sith, I would have, in regards to biology, I would have to make a caveat to that point you're making. Up until relatively recently, you're correct. However, as our understanding of biological systems has improved, there is now a growing necessity in biological research to be, whether or not they're agreeing and accepting and publicly stating that, like, oh, we need to be applying engineering principles to our understanding of biological systems. It's on the surface level, oh, it'll evolve. It evolved, and it's all random, and there's no like rhyme or reason to why these principles, what principles have followed and stuff, right? But now they're finding like, oh crap, it turns out this is like exquisite engineering. It's like optimized to the ends. Like there's things in your body that are literally it's not possible for them to be optimized more from a physics perspective. They are the literal supreme perfection. They cannot get better, right? And now, like as research teams, it's now computer scientists and information specialists and engineers are being brought in to work with the chemists and the microbiologists to be able to figure out how things work. And are having to apply all of these principles the exact same things that we would apply in terms of like doing reverse engineering, like industrial reverse engineering, military reverse engineering, all that kind of stuff. We're going to apply the exact same logic and principles to figure out how biology works, right? While simultaneously the average person is being told that there is no rhyme or reason, there was no direction, there is no process, there is no design that has to be accounted for.
And they're also being told, this is just flimsily put together. It's like it just kind of, fell into. They're actually being told a lie that our systems are not optimized. They're being told, oh, this is all. If someone designed this, it was a pretty bad designer. Stuff like that. Like for example,
So my background's in tech, right? And So when I started learning about the genetic code and all of the things that are going into it, the nanotechnology, the 3D printing logic, all this kind of stuff that is biology. And when I started learning about that kind of stuff, I actually got bored with human technology and became extraordinarily fascinated with biology, because I'm like, holy crap, I've been chasing all this, like the latest and greatest badass tech that humans are creating. And then I'm realizing that the technology that enables me to exist is exponentially superior to what humans are quote unquote creating. Right. And then I started getting into on the information theory side, you start getting into how communication is operating inside of your cells. It's like, holy crap. Yeah, I completely reject the idea that this can form itself. Like, it is not plausible. This is just beyond, this is like, we've jumped the shark at this point. Like, evolution was developed and became indoctrinated in people before we understood, like, before computer science existed, right? Before Shannon came up with information theory and formalized it and all that kind of stuff, right? Like, Darwinism had become dogmatic in modern academia. And since then, they've had to dramatically alter and modify and come up with new variations of evolutionary theory and whatnot. They still spew a lot of the same talking points to the uneducated layman, but they keep having to come up with way more convoluted explanations for quote unquote evolution the more that they discover. Like, for example, in the are you familiar with the concept of like multiplexed coding by chance?
I have no idea what that is.
Okay, so short version is in the same communication channel and the same syntax, you can have multiple commands being sent in the same format. And it's like overlapping. And as long as you have a decoder that knows the logic of both communication systems, it can interpret both things simultaneously. Well, we've recently discovered that multiplex code theory is applicable to the genetic code, and we're finding out that there is multiplex code in the genetic code, which has two layers. Actually, there's more than this, but there's at least two layers of simultaneous information that's being expressed via the exact same syntax, which is like mind-bending. The reason I say that it's mind-bending is because humans had thought that multiplexing was possible, but our technology was not advanced enough in order to actually make it work until relatively recently. And we're now being able to do it, right? But this is a necessity that, from a quote unquote evolutionary worldview, somehow formed itself through undirected process without the actions of an intelligent agent. And it's like, so at this point you're getting to the level of, so you're claiming that ASCII and Unicode created themselves, mapped it to binary, and then create all of the encode, message, decode communication systems. Oh, and then they added additional layers to that information via the same syntax, and can do simultaneous commands of create a dual use syntax. And no intelligent agent was necessary for this. This all happened through random undirected process. Sorry, shark has jumped for me. But I know
I can understand that.
Seth,
can I recommend the resource?
Okay, hey guys, it's getting late. It's I gotta go to bed.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
thanks for having me, though. This is
it was
really
fun, guys. Yeah, this has been fun.
Hey, so before we go,
I learned a lot.
Hang on, let's do a round of like last words, and then we'll call it a night. So, Seth, Lord or Emperor, I know you're retired, so why don't you go first? Last words, then Anthony, then Armored, then Stephen, then me, and we'll wrap it up.
Okay. Thanks for everyone for having me, especially for opening this stream for me. It was really nice. It's my first interaction with the people after a debate like this. Generally, I never catch one of those debates live. So, yeah, it was fun. It was interesting. I learned a lot, and I got to meet lots of interesting folk. And I really appreciate it. Oh, and now I'm really going to hop off. Good night, everyone.
Good night, buddy.
Sid.
Take care, man.
Great to meet you, and you're always welcome back.
It was fun learning, buddy.
Enjoyed having you. Have a great night. All right, Anthony?
Yeah, I would say this is the first time I've participated in a panel discussion like this. It was fun. I was kind of having more fun when the skeptics were here, because we would have a conversation with them, and I was I was hoping that Atheist Junior and Danny and the other guy would stick around a little bit longer. But that's all right. They're free to do what they want. But yeah, basically summing up, atheism does require evolution as a necessity, and I think they do need it, and they do promote a version of evolution which is demonstrably wrong. So these are the kind of things that we established. And if somebody wants to come and talk about that some other time, maybe we can continue that conversation. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Great to have you. Welcome back anytime. Yeah, so I know it can be fun when you got the atheists to go back and forth with. It's definitely a good time. So hope we got some more in here next time. Okay, Armored Bear, your turn, man.
All right. Well, it was fun. Yeah, it was incredible. I learned a lot, and especially, like I said earlier, I'm 19, I'm very young, and I'm learning a lot from all the different viewpoints. But like I said earlier, also, my faith in God is not going to be shaken. And I know it's not, because I've seen incredible things with this incredible God that he's done in his creation. I learned a lot. And I'm excited. First time I've ever done this. So I was shy originally to come up on here and talk a little bit. And, I'll probably do this again, but not as crazy and wild, probably with a little bit more of an attentive awareness, so to say. So yeah, it was fun being on here. Thanks for having me on here, man.
You're welcome. Appreciate you coming and breaking the ice and taking your first plunge into the madness of YouTube. Steven, you're up, man.
Yeah, I definitely wish that StreamYard had some type of raise your hand icon you could have next to your name if you wanted to talk, because I really hate trying to barge into conversations. But I think one of the big problems we have are people are over-educated. And when I say educated, they're taught how to think. They're taught what to think, not how to think. And we need to get back to teaching people to think for themselves and to reason things out instead of just regurgitating knowledge that's been passed down to them. And I can't believe it's been 3 hours and 11 minutes so far.
No, that's a great point, Stephen. I agree with you 100%. I go on diatribes about that all the time, of just the incredible lack of critical thinking skills on one side, and then the refusal to execute those skills on the other, right? Like, well, you might be correct, but I'm not even going to analyze whether or not what you say is true or false. But you're wrong. It's like, woo, okay, man. And I tell you what, I found it extraordinarily fascinating in the past 2 years of being on YouTube. Actually 2.5 years now. That, prior to that, I was heavily involved in the, professional world and not engaging in any of this kind of stuff. And in that arena, nobody goes into a meeting uninformed and then admits they're uninformed and then says that the person who is informed is wrong. You would be fired instantly, or you would lose a contract, or be laughed out of the room, right? You never get a promotion if you're running around telling people that I'm a dumbass, I don't know what I'm talking about, but you're definitely wrong, and I don't know why, and I can't defend myself, but you're wrong. Like in any other arena, other than the foundational arguments for our very existence, which is what blows me away and substantiates your point, Stephen, that people are being told what to think, not how to think. In no other context would you be considered rational. And yet, especially in the YouTube world, those people are argued to be the rational ones, and those who question the status quo are the irrational ones blinded by faith. And it blows me away every time. But in line with that, folks, as you consider things we're arguing tonight, the debate, other research that you do, as you pay attention to different interactions people have online or books that you read, make sure you take advantage of the incredible mind that we've all been given, the abilities, the skills to analyze information and ultimately reach conclusions. But make sure whatever conclusion you reach is logical, plausible, and probable. Have a good night, everybody.